Hey, this one actually went along pretty well without any technical problems. So see what I mean? I know what I'm doing. I'm a real YouTuber. In this episode, I got a chat with NinjaristicNinja. And if you haven't heard of that name before, please make it a duty of yours to fix that either after listening to this, while you're listening to this, or even right now. This is like genuinely one of the most talented creative people I've ever met in my life. And I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to chat with him. This will be the last episode for a little while as I plan on finishing up the next video before I go back to doing anything related to the second channel. So enjoy. I'll just ask you this now because I've been meaning to like ask you this for a while now. I remember, I don't know how long ago was your Patreon Q, or not your Patreon Q&A, it was just like a Q&A for your channel. You posted that like a long time ago, and I remember hearing it, and somebody asked you if you would do YouTube full time, and I've noticed that you have like a very stoic approach to YouTube. And I remember your answer went something along the lines of like, you wouldn't do this full time, and even if you could, you still wouldn't do it. And I'm curious, like, has that answer changed? And if it hasn't, like, where exactly does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer's changed a little bit. I think ultimately I still can't, like 100% with the kind of content I make now. I don't think it's possible. If I could, I would. But the reason I'm so sure I can't do it is because it's just not financially stable in the slightest. And like between all of my YouTube videos so far, I haven't made a single dollar.
Wait, what?
All of it's copyright claimed. Yeah, all of it's copyright claimed. I can't make money off of videos I can't monetize, right? So
I didn't even notice that. I mean, yes, you are correct. I have noticed that you've been using like usually J-rock music. I didn't even make the connection between the two, but not once. Like, so not a single one of them you've been able to like monetize or anything?
Yeah, correct. I think the only one I can monetize is the Q&A, but I'm not sure that's doing the numbers.
It's not getting me Lamborghinis, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so when you, but even so, I feel like underneath that answer that you were giving in your Q&A, it almost feels like you still, like, even if you could, you wouldn't do it. What is the, like, what is your reasoning behind that? So if there was a world where like you wouldn't get copyrighted to shit, is there a chance that like you would want to be? Because I think you're a very talented guy. So that's the thing, is like I would hate to see that not happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think back then, I can't remember how many subscribers I had back in that Q&A. But I think it's just from trying out YouTube for so many years. Because as I kind of mentioned before, I've been uploading on various channels for the last 10 years. I think it just kind of got to the point where I kind of gave up on the idea, to the extent where like even though I had like 20,000 subscribers when I made that Q&A or something like that, it still kind of felt like, okay, yeah, this is a very successful hobby. But I mean, yeah, I would love to kind of do it full time if I could, and I am trying to kind of branch out, or at least because like when I started making manga animations, I thought this is like a good hobby to practice After Effects, and then maybe I can get into like VFX stuff at some point. But as I've kind of, grown this channel and kind of across multiple social medias, and I've spoken to kind of more kind of creators and stuff, I've realized that I can actually probably, if I kind of keep at it, I can probably make a career off of animating manga and like comics specifically, like through freelance and stuff. So yeah, the answer's definitely changed to an extent.
You mainly mean like in a world where you could do this full time, you could do it for somebody else, or did you mean that as in like you just do your own thing, like what you do right now with your channel?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be able to just do my own thing, right? But I think now it's kind of gone to the point where I can do like, for example, like webcomic. Wait, is it web? No, sorry, not webcomic, webtoon.
Yeah.
Like the big, yeah. I get a bunch of kind of commissions for that kind of thing. So like as an actual career, I can do it that way, I think.
You're probably the first person I've ever heard like be very honest about that. I feel like a lot of people very early on kind of consciously decide like, oh, this is like a dream come true. But you're very realistic about it, which I kind of expect. Which, by the way, how old are you?
I'm 22, I think. Am I? Yes, I'm 22.
Nice.
Very aware of my own age. I had to check.
Yeah. There's like I'm 22 as well, but I still got a year left in college, and there's like this blissful ignorance that I have right now in terms of Like I still got to, because I have a year left, I don't have to think about the adulthood stuff. Like I don't have to think about what exactly am I doing with my life yet, but I just know for a fact, like once that happens soon, it's going to be pretty rough. Like I'd imagine probably some of the realism that you have with like how much of a hobby this hobby can actually be is just from the fact that I think you've already graduated, right?
Yes, I did. I graduated last year, I think. Yeah.
So you graduated when you were 21?
Yes.
What did you go to school for?
Film production. Believe it or not.
Okay. And is that what it's like listed under, or is it like something more specific in film production?
I mean, the general course was just kind of film production. But in the kind of final year, I did choose to kind of specialize in editing specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, the thing is, like, the whole film course was scuffed. I'll say right now. It was not a good uni experience. As you probably imagine, the pandemic kind of screwed it over. Cause,
just a little bit. Just a teeny tiny bit.
Because turns out, a practical film course where you need to, gather in groups to film things is a little bit difficult when you can't gather in groups and film things. So, yeah, that course just kind of went down the drain. But at the very least, I was able to then decide to open After Effects for the first time, and that's just kind of where the MMVs randomly came from.
What's the origin story behind that? Because I know you have like 2 videos that are like meme shit posts on your channel, I guess you would call that.
It's a high quality. What do you mean?
No, I didn't refer to. I make shit posts, but that doesn't mean that they're top tier Oscar nominations. But then I think many years later is when you posted your first MMV. What's the story behind that? What made you want to do that first one?
To be honest, I was really pissed off when I made that first video. Like that's like the reason I started uploading on NinjaristicNinja is because I was really pissed off. There was a Pokemon episode.
Okay.
Right. It was the Pokemon League kind of final tournament of the X and Y series. And basically, long story short, the Pokemon, Ash lost essentially.
Mm-hmm.
He lost in the finals. Yes. It was Greninja, my profile picture, versus a Charizard, and basically everything was kind of pointing towards Greninja winning, and then he lost. And 2 days after that, I uploaded that video in just a blind rage.
I was seeing for 2 days. You were just seeing red afterwards. Like,
oh yeah, it is the first time I've audibly reacted after watching anything. Like I'm normally quite like just kind of quietly watch it and smile occasionally, but that was the first time I genuinely got out of my chair and just screamed, "What?" When my parents opened my door, like, what's wrong with you? As I was staring at a unconscious Greninja. Like, it was rough. And the thing is, I made that video, right? And I thought, okay, well, this channel can be like a shit post, like occasionally. And then 4 years later, during the pandemic, the trauma kind of hit again. And so I made a second video on the Pokemon League thing. And that's why I have this microphone. That's why I did live commentary. So I tried doing kind of commentary videos. It's because I wanted to rant about the Pokemon League, essentially.
And how many years was that before you posted your first MMV? Like, at what point did you make the conscious decision to do or to maybe potentially go down the route of doing commentary?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 2020.
Okay.
I think. So yeah, it was around 20. I think just after the pandemic started, basically. I was like, I'm going to get a microphone. I'm going to rant about this stupid episode so I can be at peace. And then I was like, okay, it's kind of fun. So I'm going to make multiple, kind of commentary videos. Essentially the videos you make now, right? Where it's like kind of video essay-esque, where it's like you kind of sprinkle your personality in with like comedy bits, but it's like still kind of informative.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of videos I wanted to make. It's just at some point I realized I sucked at it. So I stopped. Like 4 videos in, I was like, yeah, I'm not very good at this. And then like a year and a half later, that's when I uploaded my first MMV, more or less.
Okay, got it. So there was around like a year and a half gap between different routes to take. There's well, hey, listen, man, if you want to use the next hour to use this platform as a way to rant about that, go for it. That's all yours. That's
don't
entirely.
tempt me,
If you've been holding in, Yeah, if you've had pent up anger for years about that episode, that's all yours. I mean, I never actually. I think I stopped watching Pokemon after 4th gen. I was so obsessed with Sinnoh League, and then afterwards I kind of just like grew out of it. Like, and not just like I grew out of the anime, but I just kind of grew out of Pokemon itself. Which I've been meaning to ask you, what is, based on your profile picture, can I assume your favorite gen, or is that like do you have like an unexpected answer to that?
Well, no, I'd say it's unexpected. I mean, my favorite Pokemon is Greninja.
Okay, fair enough.
But my favorite generation is probably also Sinnoh still, or the one just after.
Okay, so what's the
Golden Age.
This is the most important question. What is the best Sinnoh starter?
No pressure. Like Final Evolution?
No
Final
pressure.
Evolution?
There's only one right answer.
I feel like all of them could be a right answer.
No, absolutely not.
Obviously Empoleon. Like Piplup, you know?
Okay, I'll give you half credit. Because I agree. I think Empoleon as like a 3rd evolution is probably the sickest. But man, I just have such a soft spot for Chimchar, bro. One, because I think Infernape is just so, his design is so sick. But I definitely agree with you. Like I've been converted a little bit to like the Empoleon side in these last few years. But Chimchar as a starter, which was the trick question, as a starter is the correct answer no matter what. And then Turtwig's like out of the question. I would actually
disagree.
No.
I would disagree.
Let's have this debate right now.
I'm the opposite. I think Empoleon's the weakest 3rd. I think Infernape's the strongest. And I think Chimchar's the weakest 1st evolution. I think it's Piplup, Turtwig, then Chimchar.
Okay,
I'm just a Chimchar hater.
When you say that by weakness, do you mean like in terms of the stats that you start off with, or do you just mean like design-wise?
Design.
Okay. I'm gonna have to disagree, my guy. I think Piplup...
really? I
think Piplup, just like a penguin... I don't know. It's just not that interesting of like a penguin to look. And plus it's very... I associate Piplup with Dawn. And as a kid, I just wasn't really that appealed to like the aesthetic behind Piplup. But just to have like this cute fucking monkey hanging off your shoulder just seemed way cooler to me. And then... yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree even more. Like, I think Infernape, I agree with you. As a design, Infernape looks sick, but Empoleon is just so dripped up, bro. Like, just he doesn't have any. Empoleon can be either or, but like every Empoleon just has no facial expression. They just look cool as fuck for whatever like moveset they use.
I mean, to be honest, I think any of the 3 starters could be a correct answer. I think if like any of the generations. I still think Sinnoh has the strongest like starters easily. I don't think it's close.
Easily. I think design-wise that was... I mean, people kind of meme this nowadays, but like design-wise, whenever they would just do like... there's that meme of Pokemon nowadays where it's like, oh, this Pokemon has a new evolution, and it's like them but with like more spikes. I'm all for that. Like I'm all for that shit.
100%. I think that's great.
I think it's the coolest thing you could do is like add more spikes to the previous design. Because I was such an evolution brat back in the day. Like I used to watch Dragon Ball Z, and back when they just introduced Super Saiyan 3, when I was super young back then. And then there was like all those memes about like was Goku's hair just gonna keep growing longer and longer and longer? And I was all for that shit. Like, if they made a Super Saiyan 10 and my whole screen just got covered in hair, like, I thought that was the coolest thing on the fucking planet. So I just, like, any design like that, like, I still fall for it. But I 100% I agree with you. Like, Sinnoh, just in terms of, like, its aesthetic and just design-wise, Sinnoh was, like, easily the coolest. Do you have a favorite game, like, out of all of them?
If I had to pick, it'd probably be... Black and White 2.
Oh, dude, that is such a good pick. Holy fuck. I haven't...
like, those games, I think, were the peak in terms of quality for me personally. Just like an all-round game. I think those are the best.
Yeah, and also, like, story-wise, I feel like Black and White 2 was the first one that you could probably play that as an adult and you'd still be, like, pretty impressed by the story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, dude, you just like released like this inner Pokemon talk I've never had since I was like 13. I have not. I'm not.
I guess it was inevitable considering my profile picture.
I mean, I've never actually played that generation, but I remember when Greninja just came out, that was like the go-to weeb like pick. Everybody was gonna be a fucking water type during that year.
What do you mean we pick? What are you trying to say?
Nothing. I wasn't implying anything. We don't. Yeah, we don't watch anime or anything like that. You actually just
not. What the hell?
Yeah, you just use manga as like reference photos. You don't actually read any of it.
Oh no, of course I don't read any manga. I just look at the pictures and go, okay, just animate that.
Yeah, okay, Kobeni and then Darby, and then that's it. And I don't know what.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure they're in the same series, right?
Yeah. You don't. I don't even know like what their names are. I've just been using them as like outlines for whatever. What is the? Can I? So I don't exactly know like the lore behind that. What is that? Like why did you what made you combine the two characters?
I had a feeling this question was coming. Yeah, I mean,
I wonder why I'm asking it.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of the staple of the channel. Basically, it's so initially there was the whole kind of Darby dance thing. And the initial idea was like I just had a random fever dream where I was like, wouldn't it be funny if he was dancing in places he shouldn't be? I thought that'd be funny. Okay. And then at some point, I was like, Kobeni's dance is funny as well. What if I just put them together? And then I remember like I was walking to university and like the radio song started playing, like the Flyers one, like the Death Parade opening. Mm-hmm. And like for a week straight, I was just kind of walking to university, listening to that song, imagining like them dancing together. And then, April was close by, so I thought, if there's any excuse to upload something kind of stupid, it would be April Fool's. So then, like, if it gets kind of badly received, I can say, well, it was just a joke. But then, if people like it, then that's even better. So, yeah, I don't know. It was like a random pairing on my mind because I like both characters, and I thought it'd be funny, and it was.
So now that you're looking back on it, do you still consider it an April Fool's joke, or can you finally admit that you were very serious about it?
I mean, I was serious at the time for sure. April Fool's was just like something I could fall back on. But now it's like my most viewed video on the channel. It's serious business, I mean, the sequel I didn't wait till April Fool's for a reason.
Have people come up with like some kind of lore between like how these two characters met, or is everyone just on the same page? Like, yeah, that makes sense. These are two definitely related manga characters.
I mean, you've got people writing all kinds of lore in the comments, like of how they met, their relationship, the kind of dynamic. Some people being like it's a really wholesome dynamic. Yeah. Other people being like kind of Darby's holding Kobeni captive. And just making a dance for some reason. Again, like the law is a little hazy, but I mean, I'm not going to confirm anything because I just, people can come up with what they want. I don't want to write the story for them.
You know what? That just made me realize you could, or not you could, I would imagine when you... Is there like a backstory you imagine for like a lot of these? Like, so there are certain MMVs that you make that are obviously just based off of like the direct lore of a manga, but then there are also times like as we mentioned with like the Kobeni and Darby thing where you're kind of just making your own thing. Have you ever thought about like, do you ever give yourself a backstory just to like give a certain MMV a direction or like a certain aesthetic to it?
I mean, for the most part, not really. I think the only one I really put more thought into was Kobeni Darby. Especially the sequel, because again, like the first one was just kind of a throwaway funny idea. And then the sequel, I was like, all right, well, like, why are they dancing together? And for the third one, I'm writing an entire story. Like the third one is going to be plot driven. But yeah, like for most MMVs, I just kind of follow the source material, and just kind of base it off of that. I think like with my recent Chainsaw Man one, that one took a little bit more of a creative turn, but that was more so because I just wanted to make it like an anime opening, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about what the reasoning behind why you made that first MMV and like necessarily, or more specifically, where you got the inspiration to make the first one. Because obviously, like I only found out what MMVs were in this last like year or two. But before I want to ask you about that, you did mention about your commentary channel, and I just want to say, as somebody who this is not my first iteration of ever making a channel. I used to do like what I do now, but with movies, and they were fucking awful. So like, if there's any part of you that still feels like you would want to do it, I totally recommend it, because all of us were fucking horrendous for like the first year that we did it. I mean, to this day, I still feel like a lot of insecurity when I do it. Like, it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's not hard, but I did want to like include that. Like, don't feel discouraged by that. Like, what you experience is a very normal like situation that I think a lot of people come across.
I mean, I think you're doing a great job. Just want to say that.
Oh,
I think
stop
you've
it.
got a
I'm
really great
blushing.
voice for it.
I mean, it definitely did not come naturally to me, but I feel very comfortable now. I think the hard part is one of the reasons why I wanted to do like the series just called Chatting With is because I feel really uncomfortable out of a dialogue or like a set of things to say, and I really. It's a big goal of mine to just like get better at that, just in terms of like a skill set to have for the future. And I also need to like leech off of like skills from other people. I'm trying my best to like somehow rob you and Danny of your After Effects skills, because recently I saw that Twitter post of your behind the scenes for the My Hero Academia one, and I noticed that you did an entire fucking city rendering for the background of it. Why? Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, all that was really was, it was a plugin which basically lets you kind of do 3D stuff within After Effects. And the actual buildings themselves were like pre-bought models that I just kind of like duplicated and like spread around. So like the real difficulty there was really just putting a camera through it and trying to kind of blend it with the manga panels. It was great. It worked out pretty well, actually. Surprisingly, for like a first attempt, I thought it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, no, it turned out fine. Whatever, no
pretty
biggie. Yeah, it just.
And my laptop didn't cough up blood, which is the real surprising thing.
Wait, no way. So you're rocking a laptop right now for like a lot of your compositions?
For everything. I don't have a PC right now. So I've currently got a pretty good laptop because I kind of upgraded at the end of last year. But yeah, I think for my first like 6 or whatever MMVs were all on like I don't want to say a crappy laptop, but like when I was done with it, it was a crappy laptop because it was damaged. It's like overheated. It was just, yeah. Because the thing is, like, After Effects is like, we recommend. I can't remember now. What is it? How many gigs of RAM? But basically, it recommended more gigabytes of RAM than the laptop had.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, it kind of
just combusted on itself.
The laptop kind of struggled. Yeah, basically, it's like, I mean, like, obviously, you know, for After Effects, I don't think the program kind of expects you to animate manga, right? So, like, in terms of intensive stuff for After Effects, animating manga is pretty low down, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I try to do actual VFX stuff with the real footage, then the whole laptop crashed. So basically, yeah, the laptop was not built for it, but the current laptop I have is pretty good, at least.
What are you previewing your stuff at? Like when you're opening one of those compositions, are you at half, one-fourth? Okay, well, half is not bad.
Yeah,
half is like workable with. I feel like once you're at 1/4, you are just guesstimating what it's gonna look like. I imagine like the amount of times you have to re-render things is just gonna be absurd. I've seen a lot of your behind the scenes stuff. I think one of the appealing things about your previews is that you like to loop them, which just makes it so easy. Like it almost makes them hypnotic. I remember for your Chainsaw Man one, you did I'm gonna have to set so much markers to like show this on the screen, but for your Chainsaw Man one, I remember you did a community post of like the different characters like alternating, and it was like you did like a different color background for each character. So like for Kobeni.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was like the Eternity Devil one.
Yeah, and that one just loops, and I remember just staring at that for so long. Part of it was because I wanted to understand like how you guys do your puppeteering on After Effects, but I also just wanted to like. I was like, why is this so satisfying to look at? And I think if we're to talk about people who have like a certain knack for different parts of YouTube, like you obviously gave me the wonderful compliment of like commentary, I think you really, really have a knack for just making just making like aesthetically pleasing visuals. I don't know if that's like intentional or you feel like you like almost picked that up right away or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just something I've always kind of liked myself. So it's kind of been built into the stuff I make. I mean, as well, like when I first kind of figured out how to render GIFs, I just kind of been addicted to it since, because it is kind of satisfying to just see things loop again and again. Like I think I recently had one on Twitter that was like from the Chainsaw Man Part 2 one, where it's like the chain kind of going into Ass's head. I think, is it that one?
Yeah, I think I know. Basically, I know which one you're talking about.
But it works so well because both of the transitions are like zooming in, so it just kind of loops that way. And I think the reason I have that kind of thing is because I have a lot of transitions that aren't just like straight cuts, but like zooming into something. So I think that's probably why they kind of loop so well, and it's like pleasing to watch.
What is the origin story behind you and MMVs? Like run me through how did the exact process go of you being like, because at some point you have to sit down with yourself and be like, okay, I'm gonna spend more than 2 days as opposed to my Pokemon edit. Like I'm gonna spend a fuck ton of time making this one. What did that first day for you look like?
Yeah, I mean, I remember distinctly, like, so there's a really obvious inspiration. If you've ever seen the official PV for one of the Chainsaw Man volumes.
Yes.
I think it's like volume 9. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the most obvious inspiration, since I stole the visual look and I stole the song. But essentially I just watched that video, and I was kind of bored at the time. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my third year of uni was starting soon, and I was just kind of like, I don't know what to do. And I kind of saw that video and I was like, damn, that's really cool. I bet I could do that. And so I opened Premiere and I tried to do it, and it sucked because it was in Premiere. And then I don't know, I just kind of figured out that, I can't remember how I figured it out, but I found out that After Effects was the program used, and I'd never used After Effects before. And I just remember opening After Effects, and within 10 days, the MMV was out. It was done. It was uploaded. And then kind of from there, I just saw more and more MMVs and just wanted to keep making more and more stuff. I think that like there's also, if you've ever seen the Jujutsu Kaisen Shibuya MMV.
Yes.
Or MAD.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. So that and the Chainsaw Man volume PV, those were the two main inspirations that got me to start animating. And it's not subtle, because I stole the song from the Chainsaw Man one for the first video, and I stole the song from the Shibuya MMV for the second video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't subtle with my inspiration, but yeah, that's just kind of how I started.
It's crazy how recent those are too. I didn't even know that MMVs were a thing before those two. I like fully same exact story with me. Like I found out through that the Chainsaw Man one, and I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with that video just because they have like 20 billion trillion views. Yeah, so like a bunch of people know about them. What was the first one that you posted that people started to find like a lot of exposure with your channel?
That's a good question. I think the first big exposure I had was around the time I uploaded Kobeni and Darby Dance, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was that and the video just before it. Yeah, it was the Jujutsu Kaisen MMV. Those two videos kind of blew up hand in hand at the same time. I think before that I was doing decent, but again, it's hard to remember all the way back then. It's hard to imagine not getting like 100,000 views in a day, you know?
Yeah.
I'm kidding, of course, I don't get that kind of views, but yeah,
and
well, I think back then,
Lamborghinis just come in like it's nothing.
Oh, exactly,
like,
yeah.
Because we're fucking,
I can't really imagine not looking out the window. Yeah.
We're fucking rich.
Oh, dude, we all, wish. But yeah, I think Kobeni and Darby Dance was basically the first kind of video that really blew up. Although I think I'd had kind of success on Twitter beforehand with, I think it was my Jujutsu Kaisen, my first Jujutsu Kaisen MMV. But yeah, I think it was around the Kobeni one that I saw my first like real explosion in popularity.
There's speaking of like your social medias, number one, you have like a very big, or not a, I use this term, but like obviously in retrospect, this doesn't really mean anything. But you definitely have like a cult following on Twitter, just in terms of how often I've seen your stuff get like reposted, and it just like they all. Again, in retrospect, somebody else could be like, no, they don't really blow up. To me, they blow up, okay? These are like very big posts that I always see because they're always like your hypnotic GIFs. Like they're always so satisfying to look at.
The GIFs were the thing that unlocked the potential on Twitter.
And it shows. And what I really like about your Twitter is that you still post like a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And I remember I think when I was making my Chainsaw Man video, that was like my first like actual proper go at what you and Danny do, and I don't to this day I just do not understand how any of that works. Like one of the things that I noticed is for your loop for your My Hero Academia one, there's a scene where you have All Might like flexing from the back. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It's like him.
Yes, I think I made it for like an anniversary one.
Yes, yeah. And there's a part where you have like his lats moving in a certain direction, and I've just noticed like these people. And when I say these people, I'm referring to like you, Danny, and just people that make MMVs. I think you guys just have like a a knack for understanding like human motion. Like it's not just put arm from point A to point B. I think you guys just have. I don't know if this is like you have made like a actual effort to like learn this, or it just kind of comes it just kind of gets to you subconsciously. But you guys just have this crazy understanding of like, okay, if an arm moves, this is how the rest of the body moves, and it looks natural. I want to know where the fuck you guys get that from. I'm so jealous.
Well, I mean, to be honest, it's. I mean, like for like big production kind of animation, right? A lot of them use references, right? Like they record themselves doing the action, so they can kind of look at it and go, you know, like you say, right? Like when the armor moves, how does the rest of the body move? And similarly for me, obviously I don't like record myself doing stuff, but like say if I want to like bend an arm in a certain way, I do kind of step back from my desk and like bend my arm in that way and look in the mirror and like look at what's moving. It's just like a good way. I mean, it obviously depends on what kind of, like how intense you're kind of animating stuff. I do the same for like facial kind of animation as well, right? Like if someone's blinking, like how much are the eyebrows moving? Like how, like do the cheeks move much? You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Just kind of using a reference essentially.
It's so funny that you mentioned that after the All Might posing, because I'm just picturing you're doing like a lat flex pose. You're just doing like bodybuilder poses. Like, how do I make myself look huge right now compared to All Might?
Just a problem. I don't think I'd be a good reference for that one because like I don't have the same muscles.
Yeah, because I'm so much bigger than All Might. It's just so hard. Like,
exactly. That's the problem.
How do you reference down? Yeah. I wouldn't even know how to do it. Danny says that they do a lot of redrawing. Do you do a lot of redrawing for your animations?
Oh yeah, I have to. That's like a kind of prerequisite of being able to animate something is you have to because it's like say if I want to make an arm move, you've got to redraw where the arm was as if it's not even there because again like you know Danny kind of explained it right. As they said, it's like if the arm moves and the arm beneath is still there, then it's not going to work. And obviously like I animated. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it. It's because there's like a delay on Discord, so whatever I'm trying to say is like 10 seconds off. But no, go for it.
No, I was going to say, I animated something recently, and I can't even remember. Oh, no, yeah. It was for a commission, so I can't say what it is, I guess, exactly. But it was a character. It was a character with a lot of hair kind of moving. Their eyes move, their mouth moves, and it had 27 layers between all of the different hairs, the arms. And then obviously you had like the base layer, which had just been redrawn, where it's just like a stump.
Yeah.
That's just left. Because of everything else had just kind of been masked out individually. So it can get pretty rough, but yeah, the redrawing part takes the longest time, I think.
Yeah, especially with you, I've seen your like 120 layer projects. I mean, number one, you use a fucking Blender camera as like a reference for it, so it doesn't really shock me that much. Do you have a background in like do you have like any sort of background experience in animation or drawing, or was it all just like a year and a half, or during the pandemic you kind of just like learned it from scratch?
No, to be honest, I mean even when I started making MMVs, I've never been good at drawing. It's just I guess I have the patience for it because I'm not good at it, but like I think you don't really have to be, and it also it depends on the manga as well, right? Like for Jujutsu Kaisen, redrawing most of it is really easy because there's like barely any shading.
Yeah.
Whereas like redrawing someone's arm in My Hero Academia is a nightmare because there's too much shading. There's like too much detail. So it definitely depends on the manga. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like a background for me, I don't really have a background. I tried drawing Pokemon when I was like 16. Didn't work out. Kind of gave up on that hobby. Um, yeah, it's just a patience, I think, and experience with Photoshop.
Is there a set of manga that you like refuse? You're just like, I'm not going anywhere fucking near this in any future project.
I don't think I've written anything off, but I know when I started. I mean, I think I started with a pretty rough manga. Like I started making by making My Hero Academia MMVs, which was like
Mhm.
a difficult one to start with. So once I'd kind of successfully made those, nothing was really off the table, except maybe like Berserk, because that's like quite difficult, especially the backgrounds.
Yeah, just a little bit
I think
difficult to
Berserk's the only
redraw
one.
Berserk.
Yeah.
Just a teeny tiny bit difficult. Is there can we are there so right now I mean just from noticing your channel, I'd say you primarily do a lot of Chainsaw Man, My Hero, and Jujutsu. I'm sure a bunch of people are probably wondering this, but is there any like future manga that you plan on tackling? Not anytime soon necessarily, but just like that you look forward to doing?
I mean, there's too many to be honest. I want to like branch out and do so many series, but I'm kind of like locked into doing certain series a few times more.
Mm-hmm.
Like currently I'm working on a Jujutsu Kaisen one, and I'm kind of locked into that because there's only so many times I can kind of tell my subscribers, guys, next time, trust me. Like yeah, 3 MMVs later, no, guys, trust me, it'll be the next one, I promise. So I'm kind of locked into doing that. But yeah, I mean, Berserk, I've got a song for that. I've had a song for it for like a year, but I haven't even kind of planned it out. I also want to tackle some like slice of life manga as well, and just manga that aren't all action, or not all action, but just like an MMV where the chorus drop isn't like an action or like a fight.
Right,
Want to do
right,
something
right.
slower.
Yeah. Does the you mentioned something interesting. Does the origin of a lot of your MMVs come from songs? Like when you're looking for inspiration for your next video, does it originate from a song?
I think nowadays it does more so. I mean, it kind of differs between MMVs. Like some MMVs, I kind of have a scene and I'm looking for a song, whereas some songs I just randomly find on Spotify and I think that would go great with so and so. Like for example, with the recent Chainsaw Man MMV, that's one where I randomly came across a song on Spotify, and as I was listening to it, I thought, wow, this really reminds me of Chainsaw Man Part 2 because of the weird kind of pacing and like the kind of tonal whiplash.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it definitely depends.
I think like I almost wonder when you come across that song on Spotify, I almost wonder like if you already picture the scenes, like the certain actions that would go along with it.
Yeah, I mean, I do for sure because I spend a lot of time because obviously making MMVs is a long process. But one of the longest processes is just listening to the song and trying to like picture it in my head. I mean, like the Chainsaw Man specifically, I'd already obviously it's one of my favorite manga, so I was able to kind of already have the scenes in my head to begin with, like the panels and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like for some manga, what I do is I reread the scene or the arc beforehand with the song in mind, so then I can just listen to the song on repeat and like visualize it. It's just, I mean, I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but it's the way I've always done it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine the best way to do it is to do it with a studio team and not have one person do all the labor. That's probably the best way.
Just one person and their mind.
Yeah. One person, one laptop.
No imagination.
24/7. Yes, exactly. And plus your imagination. There's there's this thing that I've been meaning to I wanted to ask this to Danny, but I just never got the chance to. So I really wanted, like, and unfortunately you're gonna get interrogated for this.
Oh, that's fine. Go ahead.
When it comes to like a lot of aspects that I feel like for YouTube, like for me personally, there's things that I put a fuck ton of effort into that I just know nobody else is gonna notice except for me and like maybe one other person. And I noticed on your Twitter you wanted to do a tutorial on impact transitions, right? I think that was like what you posted recently. And that's like a really interesting thing because I feel like you were the definition of that. I feel like, especially like now that we talked about you doing that Blender rendering, I feel like there's probably a lot of things that you place a lot of emphasis on, but people won't know what that is. They'll just think, oh, that's a satisfying thing to look at. What's your balance with that? What is the extent that you do things that are like, okay, like no one's gonna notice this, I'm not gonna bother, and then what is the like, no, this needs to be like perfect, this needs to be the way that I want it to be?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get what you mean. I think for a while I was kind of like I'd often kind of cut corners. They'd be like, do I have to animate this hair moving? Like no one's gonna notice. But it's like as I watch kind of more and more really high level MMVs, I realize that even those tiny details just kind of work to, you know, uplift the kind of whole visual, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the smaller details, if they don't like consciously go, oh wow, the hair's moving, it just makes it kind of subconsciously look better. And to be honest, I wish I did cut more corners. I think I've kind of gotten a little bit too obsessed in the sense of like every shot needs to move, when even like some of the best MMVs, like they have still shots, you know, sometimes they get a little bit PowerPointy. I know I struggle with it sometimes where it's like, this panel needs to move, I need the hair to move, I need to blink, I need like an awkward kind of like head movement, you know. But I mean, yeah, I think ultimately the smaller kind of details, even if people don't immediately kind of notice them, I do think they do actually make a pretty big difference.
I mean, I think I would even make the argument that that obsession that you have is probably the reason for your success. Like there's just, you can kind of tell that there are no like corners trying to be cut. And it's almost like, I feel like with what you do, there's like a certain level of uncanny valley that you're trying to avoid. And that's probably really hard to pinpoint. I'd imagine if you look at a certain scene or like a certain set of frames, it's probably, I mean, maybe because you're so good at it, you can probably identify those things right away. But for me, there are just certain times where I look at a certain MMV or like animation, I'm like, there's something off about this. Like there's something not human in what I'm looking at. And I'm wondering like how often do you probably come across that?
I mean, I think, again, it kind of goes back to the thing about not kind of cutting corners. I'm like, I mean, I don't want to say, you know, I'm a perfectionist. Nothing I make has any flaws or anything like that. But I'll never kind of upload or move on from something I'm not like happy with. Like I'll rewatch it like 30 times, and if I'm just kind of not satisfied with it, whether it's like got a weird kind of look to it, or if the lighting's off, or if it just doesn't hit the way I want it to, I kind of just will not move on until I've kind of figured it out. And if I can't figure it out, I'll use a different panel. Yeah, I think it just kind of goes to like perfectionism, I guess. Attention to detail.
Yeah, I disagree. I think all of it's perfect. I think there's no argument about it.
Thank you.
I feel like it's almost like if you do cut those corners, there's like a subconscious experience where people just kind of sort of feel like something's off. And that could be I feel like that could be the case for like any kinds of videos that you make. If there's so often, like so we'll talk about like commentary videos, for example. I feel like if there's something off about the audio that you use or the music that you use or how you transition things or how you talk about it, and you kind of give it that approach of like, yeah, we're just going to take the easy route on this. I feel like if you do that too often, there's almost like a subconscious ick that people have that like when they're watching it. So like when they're watching an MMV, I almost feel like if something is just too jagged or too awkward too often, they're not here to be like, oh, well, the elbows and the forehead didn't align with this. I think it's just kind of like this ick that people feel that almost makes them click off without even knowing why they clicked off. And I feel like that relates to all fields, and maybe you're not like obsessing over it for that reason, but I think the byproduct of it is like, oh, as somebody who watches Ninjaristic Ninja, I can feel that. I can feel that there are no like corners being cut, if that makes sense, which makes it a lot more satisfying. And I think the product of it is like is infinitely better because of it.
Also, I just want to say I appreciate you pronouncing the name correctly. Ninjaristic Ninja. That is how it's pronounced. It's not Ninja Artistic Ninja. It's not Ninjastic Ninja. It is Ninjaristic Ninja.
He's already starting to see red, guys. I don't know if I can get him back.
I'm starting to see red
He's
again.
going to start doing Greninja rants. I don't know. I think I lost him. I think it's
Don't tempt me. Again, I will. It's still fresh in my mind, every image of that fight. But no, I mean, it's actually only recently I realized that my name was as scuffed as it was, because I checked my YouTube analytics for my most recent video, just, as you do. And I saw the most, like, how people are finding the video. And obviously, like, the top terms are like Chainsaw Man, Asa, Genji, whatever. And then fourth and fifth. Fourth was Ninjastic Ninja, and fifth was Ninjaristic Ninja. So I kind of came to the realization that more people were finding my videos by misspelling my name. And then I checked on Twitter, and people who'd been following me for over a year also thought it was Ninjastic Ninja.
I feel like I think your fans are just dyslexic. I think you have a weird sociology study, and you just cater to people that are dyslexic. Surely. For sure. There's no way. There's definitely no way that for example, so we talked about this earlier through DMs, but you're in my Chainsaw Man video, because there's like a segment where I talk about fan creations, and I credited you twice as Ninjaristic Ninja. So I'm definitely not one of those dyslexic fans at all. There's absolutely no chance.
Honestly, I didn't even notice in the video, but I think that kind of says it all. The fact that someone can type it like that and I won't immediately spot it kind of says why. Because the problem is, I know it's Ninjaristic Ninja because I see the name every day. Like, it is the name I use. But obviously, like, if someone watches my video once and just kind of look at a glance of my name, they'll be like, oh, cool, Ninjastic Ninja. I'll keep that in mind. Like, I get it. It's too long of a name. I should have rebranded when I had the chance. But I also didn't think the channel would do this well. So I was just like, who cares? But yeah, no, I should.
What's the origin of that name, other than, like, obviously Greninja being, like, the reference to it? But is that, like, a gamer tag that you used to have? See,
that's a funny story. It has nothing to do with Greninja.
Okay.
But it was a gamer tag. But it wasn't my gamer tag. I stole it from a Minecraft server in 2012.
Am I allowed to ask for more context, or is that like is that Minecrafter still out there feeling salty about it?
No, I don't think he is, to be honest. I mean, yes, I can give context. I mean, I didn't actually steal the name Ninjaristic Ninja because they didn't spell it correctly. Okay. They spelt it with a G instead of a J. So if anything, I just corrected the name, and kind of took it.
That I'm gonna bleep
exactly.
that out.
And that's what I was gonna say.
I'm gonna bleep that out. There's no way I'm gonna get.
It's fine. Well, no, it's fine. I mean, you didn't say it, but it sounds too close to it for comfort.
Yep.
And the thing is, back then, like even back in 2012, I was like really conscious of the word because, like, I just didn't want to go near it. And he was Australian, which doesn't really have anything to do with it. I just mentioned that. But whenever he would say, because he also had a YouTube channel back in the day, and whenever he would do an intro and say it really fast, I just kind of like awkwardly look around because it's like,
yeah.
And I don't think he realized, and people around him probably didn't realize, but I liked the idea of the name, and like I pronounced it Ninjaristic Ninja because I thought that's how it was supposed to be pronounced, and then it turns out it wasn't, so I took the name and repurposed it. But obviously without the G for that reason. I mean, even with my name, Ninjaristic Ninja. Yeah, exactly. Even with my name, Ninjaristic Ninja, I pronounce it very carefully. Like, I'll never say it too quickly because it's a little bit too close, Especially nowadays, I ain't taking that risk.
I definitely dove into that word without doing much thinking. I realized about halfway through the enunciation, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now.
Yeah. I mean, again, you didn't say it, but I'm glad you almost did, in the sense that it kind of justifies what I've been thinking all these years. That,
You've been holding it in. You thought it was just you this entire time.
Yeah.
You poor thing.
But yeah, so that's the origin, essentially. I stole it.
Then what's the origin of the Greninja then?
Yeah, I mean, with Greninja, I think the whole ninja thing just kind of connected. I actually used to have a Pokemon channel back in 2015. Okay, let me step back. I used to have a Pokemon channel. I uploaded one video and I gave up. But it was called NinjaristicNinja.
Okay.
Yeah, you see what I did there? Yeah.
Even more dyslexic. Got it.
Yeah, something is no one's going to be able to find on YouTube because they're going to search something else entirely. But yeah, like I was like, I just lost my train of thought.
It was the origin for your Pokemon
This is the fun with the name.
channel.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, the whole Greninja thing wasn't like before I started MMVs. My mascot wasn't even Greninja anyway. I think it's actually only like 3 MMVs in that I switched to Greninja.
Okay.
Because before Greninja, do you know the Mario enemy, Shy Guy, the little red guys with the white masks?
Yeah.
Yes. So my mascot used to be that, but green, and instead of like a circular mouth, it had like the cat face where it's like a 3 sideways.
Yeah.
That was my mascot for my first 3 MMVs, and mainly for like my commentary videos beforehand. That was like the mascot. But it just kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, so my name's NinjaristicNinja, like emphasis on the whole ninja theme, and my profile picture is a shy guy with a cat face. I was like, I kind of want something, that actually relates to the name slightly. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, my favorite Pokemon's Greninja, so I'll just do that. So yeah, that's it.
This profile
Greninja
picture I'm looking at right now, did you draw that yourself, or is that just a photo of Greninja?
I think it's just official art, and then I kind of like cropped it out and then put it in Photoshop and just customized it a little bit, just to have it in like profile picture format.
So now that you're now that it's been hold on, let me look at this. It's been you've only been doing this for around a year. I did not know that. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think 1.5 years specifically.
Jesus Christ, man! Congratulations. Now that you're 1.5 years into this, is there is there even consideration for rebranding, or do you feel like you just got to double down on it at this point?
I was gonna double down because I'm an idiot. Yeah, I mean,
fuck it. The rest of my life, I'm a Greninja.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've kind of shot myself in the foot with my watermarking. Like, I don't regret putting watermarks on everything. But everything is watermarked NinjaristicNinja. So even if I like rebrand to Ninjaristic, it's like the watermark says otherwise.
I think.
Yeah, so like at this point, I'm kind of just doubling down.
If I was your agent, which I'm not, but
you could be
with your Lamborghini money, starting now, this might be a possibility. If I was your agent, I think it'd be possible. I think you could still go with Ninjaristic. That's just me personally, just in terms of like you could make that transition and enough people would be able to pick up on the context. But that I didn't I now that you mention it, I did not notice that you even have watermarks in all of your videos. Do they often get like stolen all the time? Because I know I have friends who like will make AMVs and they will immediately get stolen on TikTok immediately.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? The reason I use the watermarks is because of TikTok first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Like, YouTube is not so much a problem. Twitter, it's not really a problem at all. But TikTok, oh my lord. they just take it and make their own thing out of it and say, guys, look what I made. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, when I first opened TikTok, like, without uploading anything, like I kind of had an account sitting around, which was, like, @NinjaristicNinja, and hadn't uploaded anything. And so I kind of, like, were logged back in on a whim, and I had like 60 followers, and I was like, why do I have 60 followers? And then I found out that 2 days prior, someone had re-uploaded one of my MMVs with a completely different song, and they got 1 million views.
Ooh.
And I was like, but it, silver lining was that they did credit me, which is why I had the 60 followers.
Is that usually how you find out?
Over time,
like, do you find out too late?
Yeah, I tend to. I mean, the thing is, I don't mind people re-uploading my stuff with different music.
Okay.
In fact, I welcome it. I think that's the reason my stuff has blown up, like my channels and stuff has blown up, because I don't think I make the best MMVs out there, and that's not me being very modest. I think there's better high quality stuff out there, but at the end of the day, my channel's pretty big compared to a lot of them. And I think a big reason for that is because I've in the TikTok bio I've put, if you use them, please credit me, because I don't mind people using them. And I think it's a good way for that kind of thing to spread. But it's more so when people repost without crediting, or they put their own watermark over it. Like, that's where it's like, really. But yeah, most of the time I find out by being tagged in the comments by a random person. But yeah, it's normally too late by that point.
Yeah, by then, like it's already blown. And also, I don't imagine you'd go through the effort of getting it taken down. I think that probably would take.
Yeah,
like
I mean, that's the thing.
Like, a lot more effort that you didn't want to put into.
I mean, I think the thing is, when it comes to like copywriting stuff, I've thought about it on Instagram, because again, it's like similar to TikTok, but not as rampant. Unless I just haven't seen it. I mean, who knows? Probably is. But on Instagram, I thought of trying to do it, because there was this whole thing. I just remembered it. It's like a core memory unlock. There was this account, right, on Instagram called, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Gege Akutami, right? Basically the Jujutsu Kaisen author.
Yeah.
It was someone posing as him
on
Instagram. Okay. And it was really impressive, because I didn't think the author of Jujutsu Kaisen posted on an English Instagram account. Really impressive.
You never know. Everyone has their own skill set these days.
But the thing is, what they would do is they would just repost people's fan art without crediting, and the comments would be like genuinely thinking it's the real person. So like, if you weren't grateful, they were reposting your stuff. It was like a cult. It's like you were just ungrateful that the real Jujutsu Kaisen author reposted your stuff. So it was around that time that I thought about kind of copyright, like trying to take down a video. But then I kind of thought about the fact that I don't own the manga, and I don't own the song. So like, look, I'm no expert, but I'm not sure if I even have the grounds to like, copyright take down something. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe I do, but I didn't want to take the risk, because it kept giving me warnings like make sure you own everything in this video before you try to copyright claim it. So that's the main reason I don't, to be honest.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I will be giving legal advice right this second. And anybody that's listening to this can also use this as professional legal advice, because I am a professional. But I'd imagine it still counts. Like, I'd imagine if you were, for example, to make a video discussing a certain manga, and somebody were to just like directly repost all 30 minutes of that onto their Instagram or something, I'm pretty sure you have a case for there, even though the direct source of what, like, if you were to talk about a Marvel movie and somebody reposted you talking about that Marvel movie, just because you don't own Marvel doesn't mean that it wouldn't be copyrighted, I feel like.
True, but I think that is kind of helped by the fact that your voice is in it, right? It's your voice specifically, whereas for like all of my videos, it's someone else's song. But I mean, maybe you're still right, to be honest. I'm not sure. But I don't want to risk trying it in case I get taken down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fair. I'd imagine. Oh, yeah. That's true. I'd imagine in being in your shoes, to get involved in any of that kind of stuff, like you're always at risk of some, like, Shueisha at any point can just press the button and fuck you over. Do you think about that a lot?
I lose sleep over that sometimes. Like, if I think about it too much, because the thing is, right. And then going back to the very first question, right, about, YouTube as a career for my channel. Another reason I haven't really fully considered it is because I genuinely think the end of my channel will be I will wake up to 3 copyright strikes and I'm done for.
Yeah.
Because everything I've uploaded is copyright claimed. And obviously I didn't used to, but I check now if the song is okay to not get blocked. Because I had one incident where I uploaded a video, it got blocked, and I was punching myself in the face because I had to change the song. But yeah, I am genuinely afraid of just waking up one day, checking my YouTube channel, it's gone. 3 copyright strikes in a row, no warnings beforehand, gone. I think it's a real risk. And so obviously when it comes to copyright stuff, I don't want to put too much attention on myself and like waving the copyright flag, because then they'll be like, wait a minute, what about you? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's almost like when people ask you, oh, would you consider doing this full time? You almost have to say no in the case that like you can't just put all your eggs in one basket in a case where like that button could be pressed at fucking whenever. Like I feel like that'd be like a nightmare situation, is to just be like, oh, okay, guys, I'm doing this full time, and then the next day it's just boom, gone. Your channel completely deleted.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one of the reasons that while my channel was kind of growing, I was like really happy, obviously. Like again, after 10 years of trying, finally something stuck to the wall. It was great. But there was also that kind of underlying fear that the more views I got, the more eyes were on me, the more likely I kind of get put onto the copyright radar and I'd be struck down. Hasn't happened yet. I've never gotten a single copyright strike, and I'm surprised, but I'm not complaining.
I'm furiously tapping on wood right now. I'm like aggressively tapping on wood for you. I just went to like the nearest bit of furniture. I got you. You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Yeah, like if it does happen, I hope it's just one, and then I can play it safe or something. But again, I feel like I'm just kind of at the mercy of, you know, the record labels' feelings on their copyright of their songs. Because if they just decide to change it at any point, that's the fear, right?
Yeah. There. Oh yeah. I didn't even consider that. Like with music too. Like all it would take is one company to just like get really pissed off at you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think the music's the main worry, to be honest. Because I think visuals are kind of is transformative enough. I mean, I think one of the benefits of always animating stuff, like we go back to like the perfectionism thing, the benefit of, you know, animating every single panel is that I think it's transformative enough to where it won't get taken down. But yeah, music, it's just like sometimes the full song, and I'm just like, please don't take it down.
Are you in circles with other people that make what you do? Because I'd imagine there's probably like a bit more comfort if you were to meet somebody who's like in the same boat as you. Like, oh, I also make MMVs. This is what I do, and I've been doing it for like this amount of years.
I mean, to be honest, in my specific kind of circumstances, no, not really. I mean, I've gone into contact with you know, people who animate manga, right, as a profession, but they kind of do it more as like, you know, for Viz, for example, like contracted.
Wait, are you talking about Holden?
Like freelance. I am talking about Holden.
Holden's a good friend. Yes. Yeah, I love Holden.
He's a very good friend. He's very great. So, but obviously, you know, in my case, I'm not kind of doing it as a job, but it is just like copyright, you know, bonanza.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like most of the people in this space that I talk to, at least, no, sorry, not that I talk to, that I follow, and that kind of follow me back, are Japanese anyway.
Yeah.
So
there's the tiny barrier, just a tiny barrier between you guys.
Yeah, and also copyright barrier, because the copyright in Japan is, I think, a lot stricter.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know people who do like full-time content creation, and they will so they'll sign with like an agency that'll block their content from Japan for them. Like they will just not even risk it. They'll just completely get rid of their content in Japan because, like you said, the copyright system over there is just fucking absurd. Like it's just it's too much of a risk, I feel like, in terms of like, yeah, sure, you could get exposure like elsewhere from around the world, but I just don't think it's worth it. Like you said, the more eyes, the more at risk you'd be, like, at all times. And I don't mean to say that like to stress you out or anything, but
oh no, of course. I mean, don't be wrong, as I've already thought it through, and I've kind of come to a place of being content with the fact that, like, if it happens, it happens. At the very least, I have other social medias, and I've kind of gotten into freelancing a little bit. So, you know, so I still have, like, I've already kind of built up the skills and the reputation, so I can kind of get into freelance without too many worries.
Like you would have enough connections.
Wrong, if I lost a channel, exactly. But don't get me wrong, if I lost a channel, I would be devastated. Like, it's hard to really think about, but yeah, at the very least, it wouldn't be the end of the world like it probably would have been like a year ago.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it just means that you're prepping for day Z, like in case like it were to ever happen, which is a good thing. I should be doing that, for fuck's sake. Like it could literally happen to any of us. I think. Wait, so does that mean are you doing like commissions now as of recently?
Yes, I finished my first commission recently, so making money finally. First time I've gotten paid to animate anything.
Can I ask you about that, or is this
like
like an
never.
NDA type of deal?
I don't think it's an NDA, but I don't think I should talk about too.
I
much,
won't.
to be
Okay,
honest.
so like I wouldn't ask you specifically what you worked on, but I just more so want to ask you like how has that been? Just because one of the reasons why like I love or like I wanted to do this series was just to like ask these types of questions to people that are in a position to do this full time. Because I debate this all the time. You know, I think my channel might be a little bit older than yours, but I also like think about this, you know, like what could that DayZ look like, and also like what are the possibilities of me being able to do this full time? How has that transition been for you in terms of like I think for all of us it starts off as like this, you know, pursuit, like this artistic pursuit almost, like you doing Blender or you trying to be a perfectionist in some kind of way is like there's a sense of improvement. It's like when you pick up a new skill or a new sport or something, there's just that joy in like learning all those things. And I'd imagine once you make the transition to like doing full time, it's almost like, oh, okay, this is my skill set. Like I have to perform. Has it felt any different now that you're doing it for like a full time payment almost?
I mean, kind of. I mean, I think I'll probably feel a little bit different about it as I kind of do more and more commissions. But I think as just like a first one, it just feels like another video to make, kind of approaching with the same mindset. I think it helps as well. For this particular commission, I had a lot of creative freedom.
Okay.
I could take a lot of creative liberties. Like I wasn't too precious around kind of, you know, maintaining the original art. Whereas, say, for something like Viz, for example, like if you draw one extra line accidentally, they'll send it back to you and be like, you know, also I've heard, you know, they'll get you to kind of correct it. And there's a lot less kind of wiggle room.
Yeah.
I think for those kind of things, there's probably a different kind of mindset, and I wouldn't be so, how to say?
Feel restricted, like in terms of, yeah.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, but yeah, for this specific commission, I've been pretty unrestricted. I've just kind of done my usual thing of creating or taking creative liberties and just animating something, making it look cool.
Did it almost still feel like work because you had that like creative freedom?
I mean, towards the end, I think it felt a little bit like work. So I was kind of done, you know. And I was like, okay, you know, I've got things to do. Just gotta get it. Yeah, I didn't rush it, of course. But yeah, I think the incentive for getting paid definitely helps as well, and does kind of change the mindset slightly.
So Lamborghinis are finally in the equation. We finally get to have.
They're on the table.
They're on the. They're not on the table. They're on the driveway. They're there right now. You just got.
Well, not on someone else's driveway, but one day.
Is there So has that almost I'd imagine you're 22, so you're young as shit.
Yes.
Has that conversation come up with like family? Have they? So do they know like what you do in terms of like YouTube and stuff?
Yes. I'm lucky. I'm very privileged and blessed in the sense that I have very supporting parents, and so I do have a safety net. If it just doesn't work out, and I'm just kind of in the safety net right now of like I'm trying to kickstart the freelance this year. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not doomed essentially. But yeah, I mean they're fully kind of aware of it. So, which is great, to be honest.
Do they get a different impression now that you are doing like commissions and stuff? Does it feel different in terms of like, oh, like this is an actual possibility instead of like, yeah, I just get copyrighted to shit. Like these get 20 trillion views, but it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I think, you know, like when I was initially kind of doing it, even they were kind of skeptical. It's like, okay, when you're animating, you know, the manga, but like you tried, I don't know, animating a job. It's like, you know, trust me, you know, let me cook and
that's a bar right there.
Career.
Can you try animating a job?
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. Maybe I should do the commentaries.
You read manga, man. You should read a fucking resume.
Oh, God. That's good. See, we're great at this. We should both do commentary stuff.
Dude, you should start a
read a fucking resume.
God damn. So that I'm having a hard time recovering from that. I was not ready.
It was good. It was good.
So how long have you been doing this? You said you've given yourself some time to like really see what it looks like to do full-time YouTube, but also doing it with commissions. How long have you been doing it with that approach?
Maybe the last couple of months, to be honest. I mean, the approach, I'm still missing a step of having a Patreon. Not to like self-advertise it on
No,
here,
go for it, please. I need you to have a Patreon. I need you to not have a fucking laptop, bro. I'm praying for you.
Yeah, I mean, I once the Patreon set up and I've got commissions going, I'll have like a better idea of how that's going to look, because that's really the end, or not the end goal, but like the next step. But before I can kind of set up the Patreon, I need to set up the Discord, and before I need that, do that, I need to make sure the impact frame tutorial's done, so there's an incentive, you know.
But it's soon.
But yeah, once that's all done,
that's looking to be pretty soon, it is. Right?
It's been soon for like 6 months. That's the only problem.
Coming soon. I
mean, like on the work in progress kind of Discord I have. Did you know that Club Penguin photo of that penguin at like a table by himself?
Yes.
Well, it's like, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
That's been the only photo in that Discord for 6 months.
Okay.
And it has remained true. So, but actually soon now, because the tutorial's almost done. Payment set up, the Discord's okay, like it's close at least.
Do you maybe this is like too deep of a question, but do you fear your audience? Do you fear your fans?
I mean, I think that's a fair question, honestly, because like you don't know really who they are until they're like in your Discord channel.
Well, I was asking because of the Kobeni and Darby thing, but yeah, that too. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean. Look, if the Discord ends up being Kobeni Darby fanfiction plaza, then that's fine.
Okay. Hey, we have it here confirmed first, okay? He approved it. I have no say in that.
I'm going to make a text. I'm not even kidding. I'm actually going to make a text channel of just Kobeni and Darby fanfiction that people can write in. That's a great idea, actually.
Fair enough. That's a Patreon incentive. You're welcome. I expect 50% of the revenue.
Honestly, go ahead. But no, I think in terms of being afraid of fans, I think I've got like a really, really kind of fan base. Like I rarely ever get even like passive aggressive comments. Like the only passive aggressive comments I get are like, "Where's the Jujutsu Kaisen MMV?"
Okay, yeah.
But so I don't know. I think again, like you don't know until they're in your Discord, typing stuff. But I think it'd be a pretty wholesome interactions. I hope.
Well, I'd imagine you've had a decent amount of interactions just through your social media, like through Twitter and stuff. Do you? Well, one, I know you get asked this because I get asked this all the time. But how often do you get DM'd like, "Where did you learn how to edit?"
Dude. I mean, every day.
Not to relive trauma or anything, but yeah, I'm imagining.
I mean, to be fair, I do answer when I can. Like the only times I don't answer is if either I just can't be bothered, to be fair, or if I just don't have a good answer. Because sometimes I'll ask about specific things, like around lighting, and I'm like the answers to get like an expensive plugin. Like, what do I tell them?
Yeah. Pay for the plugin.
It'd be like a whole
pay
paragraph.
for the plugin. Yes.
But I mean, like, if it's something like, what software do you use? I'll be like, After Effects. Boom, easy. Thank you. You're welcome. But like sometimes I'll ask stuff like, how did you learn to use After Effects? What tutorials did you watch? And I didn't watch tutorials. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So I don't actually really have a direction to point them in.
That's the hard part.
So I just kind of learned by trial and error.
Because I feel like with Blender, if you were to ever pursue learning anything in Blender, I feel like there's just a tutorial for everything, every single aspect of the software. I think and I noticed this with After Effects, not necessarily doing like animation like what you and Danny do, but I like doing 3D stuff with After Effects. And I mean, like a big reason for why I wanted to learn Blender is just because there's a certain point where it's literally like you are doing the antithesis of what the software wants you to do. It's like you try to do anything in a 3D space, and it's like, was there part of you that attempted to do the city for My Hero Academia through After Effects, and like you almost gave up?
Well, I mean, it was kind of, again, it's like the actual plugin kind of put it in After Effects, so it kind of was enough that it just had the kind of same controls as something like Blender, I think.
Okay, let's do the nerd talk. What is this plugin? What did you use?
It's a plugin called Element 3D. It's by
I know.
Copilot one.
I did not know you could do that with Element 3D. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a personal set of like go-to plugins for After Effects. What are yours? I use Magic Bullet, like for example. I love working with looks. And I also like using trap code.
Magic Bullet's the big one. Like Magic Bullet, I mean the whole Red Giant thing, right? Like Magic Bullet, trap code. I think it's mainly just that. And also optical flares.
Okay, so the optical flares come from a separate plugin entirely?
Yeah, that's the Copilot one.
And by the way, if Magic Bullet is watching this, we paid for all of these. 100%, all of.
I actually did because I got a really easy discount. It was $3.
Wait, what? Who the fuck? Whose dick do I gotta suck to get that deal? What the fuck is that?
You don't. You're a student, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just get the student discount.
Seriously? Are you fucking kidding me?
And I'm still on the student discount.
God damn it! I did not
it's
know
rolling
that.
Out this month. Well, yeah. I mean, how it works is, I mean, I don't think it's specifically student either. I think if you're affiliated with a school, then you can get the student discount, because that's what I did. I got the actual official thing because like I got it during university. I was like, well, here's my university email. Gave me a code. I redeemed it. Definitely worth looking into. And then after I finished uni and the license was running out, I actually did a kind of part-time, or not part-time, like a internship. I did a paid internship at my previous school. So I had my school email there. So I was able to extend it for another 6 months, which is the license I'm currently on.
Wow.
So yeah, if you're a student, there you go. God
damn. I think you just like unveiled a strat that you could probably do for the rest of your life. Well, so right now I don't.
Just go from educational institution to
so you just take
institution.
one class at like a community college every single semester, and it's just bullshit. Like you don't ever show up or anything. Like it's just like at some random school. I'd assume you're probably paying like $30 to $50 for that class, and then you just save. Wait, let's do the math. Yeah, you could probably save like a ton of money if you because right now I get all of Adobe Creative Cloud with my student account. Like I don't have to pay for anything for Premiere or After Effects or Audition. And like you could just do that for the rest of your life. Like but I'm trying to think like to what extent does that become worth?
So why did you want to become a teacher? Oh well, you see.
Why are you a teacher once a month? How does that work? How did?
Yeah. And then you just have to quit your job when the email kind of runs out, and it's like, oh well, I quit. I need a different.
Yeah,
school.
I mean, mine runs out, I think, a year after I graduate. So I've got a year left of school. So I've got probably like 2 years left before I got to figure out like an alternative solution for my my Adobe softwares. Legal alternatives. 100% legal alternatives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Me and Ninja here, we would never ever do anything illegal.
Hey, I'm in the clear.
He's never done anything illegal in his life. I can vouch. Okay, as his agent, I can vouch.
I pirated Photoshop when I was 13.
No.
I've done my time.
I'm bleeping all that out. We're not. That's confidential information.
It's confidential information. I mean, and the thing is, like when I say like the, like for the thing you get from the student code, like you get the entire thing. You get Magic Bullet, you get Trap Code, you get Cinema 4D. Like, yeah, it's definitely worth looking into.
Have you used the Cinema 4D yet?
No, because I don't need it. I used Cinema 4D when I was like 12, which I totally got legally with a virus. Funnily enough, bit of a weird thing.
A legal virus.
Yeah, a very legal virus. A bit weird from Cinema 4D to be honest. But,
to just do that to my PC, it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I paid for a virus. Kind of cringe. But yeah, I mean, like back then, I didn't really like the software, and it's just like because I have Element 3D. I don't know if anyone uses Cinema 4D, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure people do, but it just seems like whenever I hear about 3D software, it's always Blender.
Yeah. No, I mean, it depends, I feel like. I know a couple people who use Cinema 4D. I think it's just, but there also tend to be boomers. But anyways,
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to ask you is that I was really I personally just get really like into it and like obsessed when it comes to editing. I have a lot of respect for you and Lines in Motion just because you're one of the few people where I see the product of what you guys make and I feel clueless. Like there's just gears spinning in my head and like steam coming out of my ears almost. But I definitely, one of the reasons why I've been spending so much time learning Blender recently is because I feel like there's a cap to what some of these softwares are capable of. Do you feel like you've hit that almost for After Effects? Like, do you feel like you are reaching the limit of what the... I feel like I know how you're going to answer this, and you're going to say it's my laptop. That's the cap. But do you feel like there's a cap to the software itself? Like, do you feel like there's a limit to what you're capable of doing in a lot of these projects?
Yeah, it's my laptop. No, honestly, it's... I think there's still so many things to learn in After Effects. I think the only thing where I felt like I'd hit the cap, and even then I hadn't really, but like I felt like I, was for backgrounds, which is why I started implementing 3D stuff. Because there were like certain MMVs I'd watch where it's like, I can't, recreate this kind of shot or this kind of like speed with a 2D background, So that's why I started using 3D for some backgrounds. Not all of them, but for some. But in terms of like everything else, like there's still so much to learn, like in terms of animation, like character animation, efficiency, transitions, like so many things. And it's kind of daunting, but at the same time, it's like, it's nice. There's always something to improve on, I guess.
Yeah, you have. I mean, I am almost like obsessed with some of the backgrounds you do, especially for the Chainsaw Man one. There's this scene where I think it's Power and Denji that are on the train, and you use like a sliding cloud effect. Is that just like one giant moving glowing PNG, or is that like an actual simulated background?
So I think back then, I remember the specific city I used because I used it in multiple MMVs. It is a panel of a cityscape from One Punch Man.
Okay.
And it's just basically animated on a loop to go from left to right. And then when you add like a directional blur, you can't tell when it's looping.
Yeah.
And then I think I just added like a flare on top of that, and it kind of gives it that kind of glow.
Man. I feel like you've just kind of like the Pokemon thing from earlier. You've just been opening up like this inner nerd in me that like wants to obsess over this. I love talking about this stuff, especially like when it comes to After Effects. I feel like, it's the thing that really annoys me about After Effects is how it really, to a certain point, it becomes plugin simulator, and After Effects is one of the only softwares that I think is just makes you have to pay so much for plugins. Like you'll hear some like fucking tutorial guy on YouTube that will recommend you like, here's a cool font, and the font is like $120. That's like it's honestly, so annoying. It's like the one complaint that I really have with that like culture or like that side of editing is that the plugin culture in After Effects, just to be able to do like a lot of cool stuff, is just so overcharged. Because in Blender it's all free. Like a lot of it is just like free. Same thing with Premiere. You can find like really sick presets on Premiere for free, and it's like usually given out. I don't understand where the part of like After Effects came out, because like if you didn't have your student membership for like Magic Bullet, each one of those things you listed off. So I think looks, trap code, and
looks, trap code,
Element 3D. Each one of those is like $200-$300. It's like why? Like, why would you pay that much if you're like if you have like a genuine like interest in this hobby? I don't get it. It's so frustrating. The other thing, so you personally wouldn't describe it as like there's a cap yet. Like you feel like there's still like a lot left to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Like just watching other like particles, I think is something I'm yet to really kind of improve on. Just kind of general lighting, compositing. Like it goes deep. I mean, the thing is, right? I'll confess right now. When I first started making After Effects stuff, when I first started making MMVs, I mentioned how I didn't watch tutorials. And I'll say now, you should not take that approach. It's a bad idea, because my like methods and the way I used After Effects back then was so bad, so laughably stupid, that I've always just kind of been improving since then. Like I've always just been like, you can make layers 3D, or there's cameras in this thing. Like,
yeah,
like genuinely, I didn't learn about cameras till my 5th MMV. Like the first 4, I was like, I'll just scale it up, and I'll scale the other things at like a separate time to make it look 3D.
yeah.
I didn't even know there were 3D layers. You know, I didn't even know there was a graph editor. Like I didn't know about easy ease or like easy out or whatever
like
it is.
velocity, like just moving around with different velocities. I see.
Yeah, like instead, what I do is I just like animate the keyframes one by one, and I'd be like, for this keyframe, the scale is going to go up by 10.
You are crazy!
And then this one by 20.
No way!
I'm not kidding.
Fucking way! That is psychotic behavior. That is actual psychotic behavior.
Yeah, and that's what I did, and I have the project files to prove it. I did that. I can't remember when I stopped, but I know I did it for my Jujutsu Kaisen MMV, the first one. Somewhere after that, I discovered 3D layers. It was actually during my university course, because I happened to do an animated shorts module, which used After Effects. Which you'd think, like, the course would help me with MMVs. But in reality, the MMVs really helped me with that module. But one thing I did learn is that 3D cameras were a thing. And like when the lecturer told me, I was like, wait, what? You're not and then she told me about like the graph editor and stuff, and I was like, dude, I'm so bad. Like I almost made tutorials telling people to keyframe one by one.
You almost did that, and they
Imagine.
would have paid money to ask for you to say shit like that, and all it would have taken is one comment.
I mean, even if it was free, I should have given them money to listen to that advice. I would have broken TOS. Like I would have gotten banned off YouTube for spreading misinformation.
That's the copyright moment right there. That's when they press the button. They're like, we need to get rid of this guy from our platform. There's no chance. There's no chance he should be allowed to say these things.
Because like, and that's why it's taken me so long to make a tutorial. You know, it's not that I don't want to help people, but it's just I know if I give them the advice, it's not going to help them.
Yeah.
You know, and when I came to that realization, I was like, I can't make tutorials. The only reason I'm making the impact frame one is because I haven't changed my method since like my second MMV. Like that's always kind of remained the same. It still works. It's still easy. But yeah, in terms of like everything else, I'm like, am I doing it the best way possible? Or am I going to like embarrass myself? Because, I've got all of these like really cool editors following me now. I don't want to like expose my really
guys, I have no
practices
credibility. Actually, turns out.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. Like publicly shaming myself.
Part of me almost feels fear
so that's why.
If you do. I want to say this, and then I want to ask you something after. Part of me almost feels fear that if you do commissions, for example, like people do thumbnail commissions, or they'll do commissions to like edit for somebody else. Part of me almost fears like once you are getting paid to do that service, it's such a like crazy wake up call of like, oh, I don't actually know how to do what they're asking me to do. And I feel so scared for you. There's going to be a day where they're like, okay, here's how the project goes. Make the animation look like this. And you're like, how do you layer? How do you make the blue? Like I almost feel like do you almost like fear that?
Honestly, not really.
Okay.
Because like because the reason I animated in such a stupid way at the start is because instead of because like I'm patient enough to spend a month working on an MMV.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm not patient enough to sit through a 5-minute tutorial. So instead of trying to, seek out a tutorial to kind of learn, how they actually make it look like that, I'd just be like, in After Effects, what can I kind of throw together to kind of get the similar visual effects?
Right.
Because like back when I started making MMVs, I didn't care how they did it. I just wanted to try to make it look like that, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't matter what effects I used or how awkward it was, as long as the end result looks like it's the same thing. Yeah. So I think even now, if someone says I want it to kind of look like this, I'd probably just, even if I didn't know the exact way to do it the best way, I'd still have a way of doing it.
I wouldn't even feel bad about that approach because, I'd say that to you or to just like anyone that's listening to this. I think a lot of people just feel like, I feel like it comes from a place of like genuine interest and like wanting to get their hands dirty. And I feel like if I wanted to learn After Effects and I was really into it, probably the last thing you want to do is listen to some Joe Schmo talk about it for number one. These tutorials are like 10 minutes and like 2 minutes of it are the actual tutorial, so it's already just like a very frustrating experience, because I'm the same. I'd say I like getting my hands dirty and just like physically finding out or figuring out how to do it, because I feel like you also learn more in the long run. Like if you watch a tutorial and it's like, here's the shortcut key bind for doing this, like press Control Z V T to do a backflip and close your eyes 3 times. Like I feel like I just forget it right after, as opposed to if you, except for I will not excuse your behavior with the velocity thing. That is unacceptable. I cannot believe that you just said
it worked at the time.
I cannot believe
Don't judge.
How would you this series is kind of just for me to like learn, but to anybody that you feel like doesn't necessarily understand what we're talking about, how would you explain velocity? Like how would you explain to people what you just did for however many months you were doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to explain exactly, but essentially, just think that there's an alternative where you have 2 keyframes. Then on the second keyframe, you click 2 buttons, and it does the thing. But instead, I was like, okay, well, I need 10 keyframes to make this movement work. And I do each individual keyframe. I do the maths. Like, I was quite the mathematician when I, did this stuff. I was like, all right, so this needs to be plus 10. Because, like, say, for example, like if I needed it to gradually kind of ramp up, I'd be like, okay, so I'll start plus 5. Then for the next keyframe, plus 10. Then plus 20, it's like nth term. So it's basically just so overcomplicated. It takes so much more time to get the exact same effect as 2 button
literally
clicks.
Yes,
it's just stupid.
Wait, I'll try my best to like give like a visual to anybody that's listening to this. Basically, like imagine if you were to zoom into a picture, there's a certain speed that you're zooming into that. And what velocity does is you can change that speed from like going from point A to point B. So, and a lot of times when you're using velocity, you're trying to emulate the motion of like a human camera moving it. So like if you were zooming in on a camera, like as a human being, it wouldn't just be a straight line. Like it wouldn't be a consistent motion. It'd be like in the middle, it'd probably go fast, and then it would just like slowly adjust into like the actual thing. What Ninja is saying that he did is that he would change the speed of the zooming in frame by frame to make it just do that, when you could just go on any software and just be like, ease in. That's all you press is a button. You just press a button that's called ease in, and it will just do that for you.
But to be fair, in my defense, I searched. I didn't, do this and consciously think this is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no problem here. I knew there was probably a better way to do it, but I didn't know what to search. And I think that's a big problem with After Effects.
True,
it's like, I searched up on YouTube and on Google in general, After Effects, like keyframe ramp up, speed, right?
Yeah.
And then it gave me something else entirely. It gave me speed ramping. And it's like, well, that's not really what I'm looking for. It's only by coincidence that I was watching a tutorial for something else that they added a camera, and I was like, wait, what? A camera? Then they turned it to like a 3D layer, and I was like, wait, what? It's only then I happened to come across it. I didn't find a tutorial for that specifically, and I think it's quite difficult in After Effects to really find what you're looking for.
I'm going to expose you right here, right now. I'm going to be pedantic, all right? I'm going to be the actually of your comment section right now. But I just typed in exactly what you just said. The first tutorial is a velocity tutorial. The first one! How did you somehow miss this?
Okay, it was probably over 5 minutes, and I wrote it off.
It is. It's 5 minutes 18 seconds.
There you go. That's fast.
You know what? You rest your case. That's fair enough. If it's, I don't blame you at that point.
Why would I watch that for 5 minutes when I can spend 30 minutes?
When I can spend 3 months figuring it out. How else would I? How else would I learn these things? Is there anything else that you've like happened to come across that you've just been doing something a certain way, and then you realize months later, like, oh, I've been doing this completely wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing kind of connected to it is the whole 3D camera thing. Because again, like I try to create the effect that like the layers were far apart, And then when I had to zoom in, it was difficult to kind of maintain that perspective. And then obviously when I found out about 3D layers, I was like, oh, because like before I'd move every single layer individually, and like again keyframe by keyframe to make the effects and kind of keep the kind of perspective. Little did I know, there was just a 3D camera where you just do one thing, and it's like, oh, So I think that and the Easy Ease thing were the two big ones. And then everything after that was just like kind of small things like keyboard shortcuts for the most part, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like, literally the first reason why I ever even bothered to learn After Effects was because I felt like the 3D capabilities on Premiere were so limited, and the first thing I learned on After Effects was how to use that 3D camera, and it's probably still to this day like one of the only reasons why I do like messing around with After Effects. I kind of feel like I'm almost surprised that you learned it so late, because I feel like your background in film would also love that. Like I love working around with like a fake camera through whatever space that I'm working with.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was my third year in a film course for university, and it's only then they told us to open After Effects. Like, I was, like after I started using it, I was like, why didn't we get taught this earlier?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a powerful piece of software. You can make so many cool things in it. Why am I only just learning about it in my final year?
Because I'd imagine there's also a lot of background knowledge that you have on it that you could have used.
Like, imagine if I knew this in first year. I wouldn't have tried those commentaries. I wouldn't have ranted about Greninja. I'd have like 50 MMVs by now.
Yeah, exactly. Is there when you were in university, which aspect of the filmmaking process did you like aspire to do?
I mean, I think when I started, I was already leaning towards editing because I had a YouTube channel during school.
Mm-hmm.
Like between 2012 and 2018, I had a completely separate YouTube channel. I have like 200 videos on it. It was for fun, and I kind of learned editing through there. So going into university, I was like, probably editing, but I was also interested in directing at the time because I won like a little student film festival for best editing and best directing. So I was like, one of those. Wow. Yeah, and then the pandemic hit, and I actually had to work with people, and I hated it. So I was like, yep, editing. The thing that will have to work with the least amount of people. Yeah, because I hate film sets now. Like, during my first year, it wasn't fun anyway, because people didn't pull their weight, but second year, pandemic, yeah, I kind of lost my enjoyment of making films, I guess. But I still enjoyed editing stuff, so that's why I kind of logged into that.
Okay, two questions. One, I think,
yes.
Well, one, I used to be obsessed with film. My first ever, not my first ever channel, but my other channel was about movies, and I think during the span of 3 months, I watched over 100 movies during that period of time, because again, pandemic had me fucked over. I have a lot of respect for people that want to pursue directing for that exact reason, just because it is such a collaborative process. And it is so the furthest thing from your original vision. I'd imagine if you have a certain idea, or you're like, oh, I want to tell this type of story, now involve 100 people into that process and try to come out somehow with that exact same story that you originally intended. So I never... Yeah. Personally, there was no... I also, I loved, learning about the filmmaking process, but if I were to pick, a certain category, directing was never... I wanted to do the on-screen stuff. I wanted to be either involved in the acting or the studio production of it, but not a single molecule in my body would be willing to do that much collaboration. And I'd imagine from your perspective, the nice thing about you doing what you get to do now is that it's 100% purely what you want it to do. So if you want something to be green, you get to make it green. There's nobody else's input that's gonna
oh yeah, I'll
exactly.
Make it green.
I'll make it more green than they want it, actually, as a matter of fact.
I'll make everything green.
Yeah, fuck it. Me. There's almost there, aside from the fact that YouTube is a monetizable thing, I think one of the most satisfying aspects about it is if you're making a mess, that's your mess. And that's the thing that I love about it. And I almost get offended when people ask me oh, when are you going to get your own editor? Or how much would, at what point are you going to consider doing that?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? It's fun to because obviously, if a video sucks, it's it's on you. But if a video is amazing and everyone's saying it's amazing, you take all of the credit.
Exactly.
And I think that's when it feels best,
Yes, exactly that. And also, I think even videos that are amazing, not 100% of it is amazing, and some of it is just like weird fuck ups. But again, that's your fuck ups. Like that's in your control. So like you're able to like learn from that in the future, and like using it in a future case. Like I don't think you would want to pay somebody to be like, hey, I'm making a video under NinjaristicNinja. Like, could you do the motions for me? It's like, why would I want? It's my transitions. Like, it's the way I want it to look like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I feel like it's the same thing, like you said, like when you hear a song, like a lot of the inspiration comes from that, and you visualize it in your own way. I feel like I probably assume that you're at the point with After Effects where you can make that like mind to muscle connection, if that makes sense. Like you can make the things that in your head like actually physically appear in the way that you want it to.
Oh yeah.
Probably after a lot of strenuous hours that happens, but I feel like you're probably at the point where like you can do it in like that exact way. And I feel like that's one of the most satisfying feelings ever. Oh,
it is.
I'd be willing to spend weeks just to emulate that feeling. Like that is such like a wonderful experience to have. I also the second question that I had was kind of relates to it, is that your experience that you had like with the directing and like working in film production, has it helped you now? Okay, now that you've finally learned about velocity in the 3D camera, has it finally been able to like connect with you? Like, oh, there's actually a lot of things that I can like incorporate into my style of MMVs.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I think, like when I first started making MMVs, obviously my big inspirations were creators like Alinko and Nanatsuki, who've made my kind of two favorite MMVs. One was like the Shibuya Jujutsu Kaisen one. Another one was like I think a Monogatari one, something. And like, when I first started making stuff, I wanted to make stuff like that, and I'd always envisioned my ideas like that, but I can never kind of recreate that. So it was, satisfying when it got to the point where, again, I'd learned, all the stuff about the velocity and how to do all these different kind of effects. And it was, really satisfying to get to the point where I could actually do those things. And it is helped by finally learning velocity.
Finally,
like really simple
after
stuff
years and years of skipping 5-minute tutorials, I finally managed to pick up.
To be fair, it was only like 3 months. Now, 3 months too long, yes.
No,
but,
I know, yeah. I'm just giving you shit for it because it's funny. But I also it took me forever to fully. It looks weird, like seeing speed in the form of a graph, or like understanding what ease in actually means. Because like it's one thing to be like, oh, okay, I pressed this button and it like makes it look smooth. It's another thing to like really try to get a project to look the way you want it to. And I actually feel like I would actually shits and giggles aside, I would actually make the argument like that is a very, very hard thing to learn, especially like with After Effects.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially since you just don't get taught it. There's not like a what's the word? Like a book that comes with it that tells you, oh yeah, by the way, don't keyframe these individually. There's a thing called ease, just do it.
Yeah. What are you watching these days? I'd imagine you're definitely not studying MMVs 24/7. What's your go-to type of content that you're watching these days?
I mean, pretty much for the last year and a half, I've put 90% of my time and like energy into making stuff, although I've taken a little bit more of a break this year because I'm going to burn out into flames. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, the content I watch is like video essay type stuff. Video essays like yours, for example, like that kind of thing that I can kind of pay attention to on the side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like while I'm editing and cropping out panels, because like cropping out panels is the most, like, it's the easiest part, but it's also the most monotonous, boring part of making MMVs. And so I always need some kind of like video on the side to like stimulate my brain. And video essays, for the most part, are the best kind of thing.
Is there a point where you have every Adobe software open at once? Like, do you have Photoshop open next to your like Premiere, open next to your After Effects, open next to your everything?
I mean, no, just because of the RAM. I mean, I think I could on this laptop, but there's just no reason to, because like the processors are so kind of disconnected anyway that I just kind of do it like one at a time. Like I'll kind of go to my laptop and be like, all right, today I'm just going to crop a bunch of panels out. I've got a lot of stuff to redraw, whatever. I'll just do that and then watch videos. And then another day I'll be like, all right, open After Effects. I've got all the stuff. Now I can animate it. On my old laptop, I definitely couldn't have done that because it would have exploded. I think once I accidentally opened After Effects with Premiere open and it crashed. So, but like even on my new laptop, there's just no need for it. I think
it's almost like you're a very young, like you're a very new and young channel, but I still feel like in such a short amount of time, you've definitely developed like a style. I feel like if I see a GIF or like a looping GIF of yours, I can kind of point out right away, like that's made by Ninja. Do you like being called Ninja? Should I not say that? Or are people going to think of the blue-haired guy?
Well, no, that's the thing, right? Like when people first started calling me Ninja, I was like, call me Ninja. Because it's like, like I'm not the only guy called Ninja with a blue profile picture. Like it's, like I just shot myself in the foot. It's on me. But I mean, no, like Ninja's fine. I think Ninjaristic's an awkward name anyway. So Ninja's fine. Yeah, I don't really mind. It's better than NinjaristicNinja.
And then my homie double N.
Exactly, yeah.
I was gonna ask you, is that intentional? Do you feel like the more you do a lot of these projects, the more you kind of want to stand out, or is that just kind of you exploring different different avenues of like expressing however you want to express those MMVs?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely been more conscious of trying to develop my own style. I'm not sure if I've kind of really got it yet, but obviously, from my perspective, I'm probably a little bit more critical.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think I've obviously got some kind of style because my stuff does get a lot of likes relative to views, more so than other MMVs that I think are just better than mine. So it's like I obviously have some kind of stylistic thing that people like, whether it's colors or the fact that they look like openings sometimes. Like not like it's so good it's like an opening, but yeah, in terms of like the transitions and colors and whatnot. And I've kind of been trying to lean into that opening style, if that makes sense, especially with the Chainsaw Man one, with like the colors and the chains.
What is your reference of study? So if you try to achieve the goal of like making it look like an opening, do you use other actual like animated openings as reference, or is there still like a what's the word for it? It's almost like you're like in this box and you're just like figuring it out from there.
I mean, when it comes to like inspiration, it's like I don't look at like specific openings, but it's just I've always really liked anime openings.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I look forward more so to the opening than the actual series. Like I watch the anime opening, be like, all right, cool, I love that season. Then I'll just not watch the actual episodes. So I kind of just have this like mental compendium of just anime openings that I just kind of have in my head, I think, that I kind of use as inspiration.
I have never ever heard of that in my entire life. Somebody looking more forward to the opening than the actual episode itself. What's the best opening? What is the best 3 openings of all time?
Okay, 3 is difficult.
2.
But like number 1 for me personally is Mob Psycho 100's first opening.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's a solid answer.
like the song's great, but the visuals, like it's got so much personality, and the transitions at the chorus. Like there's one particular part with like a spoon, where like Reagan's kind of looking into the spoon and he burns his tongue. The way the spoon kind of bends and transitions. I can't describe it because I'm not good at describing things, but like that part, like those kind of transitions, the way it kind of flows from shot to shot. For me, it makes it the best. But yeah, number 2, it could be like 50 things. I think one I really like recently is Ranking of Kings, opening 2.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Really
that's a great one.
That's a banger. But again, like I think number 1 is Mob Psycho, then number 2 and onwards could be like a lot of things, I think, for me.
Has doing what you do now almost like affected the way that you perceive openings now? Like, do you think about the editing logistics of how they did that as opposed to just just listening to the opening itself?
Yeah, definitely. I think. I think now more so because I've kind of got that direct source of inspiration. Whenever I'm watching an anime opening, I'm like replaying parts and being like, how do they kind of do that? Like, obviously, I'm not going to do it the same way because I don't. It's like anime production and After Effects are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some similarities, and I think there are some anime openings that have clearly been done very heavily in After Effects.
Oh,
and so there are definitely some kind of things to be taken.
Do you ever notice? Have you watched Blue Lock?
I have okay, no. I've watched the openings and I've seen clips, but I don't
Blue
really
Lock
follow the
has a
series.
lot of moments where I think to myself, like, this is a lot of heavy work that is probably done in After Effects. Not necessarily the openings. I could see some parts of the openings probably being done on After Effects now that I think about it. But they do like mid rolls, or I don't know, is that what that's called? Like when it's the halftime of the episode or whatever.
Oh, what, you mean like the Full Metal Alchemist stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do.
Full Metal Alchemist.
yeah.
Full Metal Alchemist. Yeah.
Blue Lock. No, I just. I think they do those like in. I feel like you can definitely tell like they do those compositions in After Effects, and there is like a part of my brain that like is a bit curious on how they do that. So I guess, damn you. Well, one, I feel like I couldn't actually make the connection with your channel. I'm like, oh, like I it makes perfect sense now that like you would find a lot of inspiration from openings. Is there even like a tiny part of you that would consider opening to like other genres of music? Like would there be a part of you that would want to do like house music or like synthwave to like do the theme of that opening?
I mean, to be honest, I have no idea what house is. What's house?
House is like EDM
kind of music's
music,
house music?
electronic.
Oh, right. I mean, I'd be open to it, I suppose. I've just kind of, I mean, I think my taste in music is kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I think MMVs have kind of, like, I mean, it was already kind of all over the place, but MMVs have just kind of amped it up to where, like, I'm pretty open to use anything. I think, like, I'm not against using house music. It's more so I need a series that, I want to animate, but also one that makes sense. And that's the main thing. Like, if I can't connect it to a series, then I'm not going to make it. I think, and there's a MMV I'm thinking of right now, actually, which is a bit of a funny case, and I think it might show like an obsession, or like, I don't know, with like wanting to just make an MMV, is there's a song, I think there's this anime called, what's it called? Magnus Bride, I think. Something like that.
I don't know anime that well, so unfortunately I wouldn't be able to tell with that.
You're a fake weeb, I see how it is.
I really am.
But yes, it's an opening from quite a while ago, to be fair. And I just randomly happened to listen to it the other day, and I thought this would go well with what's it called? Witch Hat? Is it Atelier?
Yeah, Atelier or Atelier. I don't think.
And I was thinking like this could be a cool one to go with that series, but I've never read that series before. I've only seen like cover art and like the occasional panel, but I've never actually read it before. But I'm already thinking I can make an MMV of that. So
I see you're reading Susu no Frieren right now, right?
Yeah, I caught up. It's so good. I've never been so hooked on a series with so little action. Like, it's so good. I don't know what
nothing,
it is.
It so picks out like the least interesting part of a fantasy.
It just makes it so good.
Yeah, it makes it beautiful. And also the artwork is just like absolutely amazing in that manga. It's so fucking good.
I mean, I don't know. It's just like watching a JRPG where they just do side quests. Like my favorite parts.
Yes.
Yeah. like my favorite part of the manga is the chapters that just kind of are very self-contained. Like, they go to a village. This old man fell off his bike. They need to help him by getting a stone. They learn something. Flashes back to her old party. Like, those chapters, I don't know. I was hooked. I love that manga so much.
I think it's so fucking amazing. I think it's dude, okay, you just opened up like this whole like world of questions I want to ask you. There I have this problem where sometimes I'll make videos on series that I've already read before, and so when I start writing the script, I have like this backlog of data that I already have, like thoughts and feelings that I have. Rarely will I ever start reading something with the intention of making a video on it, if that makes sense. You have already read, obviously, like, and I mean, just based off of your MMVs, you were caught up on Chainsaw Man, you're caught up on Jujutsu Kaisen, and you're caught up on My Hero.
Yes.
Which, by the way, this last year I started actually reading the My Hero Academia manga. Dude, how the fuck did they do the anime so dirty when the manga is fucking beautiful? It is also like the most R-rated one out of all of them. I feel like My Hero Academia has had some of the most like just moments where I've just been like, damn, like I should have signed a parent permission slip before looking at any of this. I feel so like, you always hear the phrase like the manga was better. Dude, the manga was so much better. Holy fuck, bro. I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but
I mean, I'm kind of mixed on it. I think I feel bad for the anime staff because they get a lot of flack, and I think a lot of it's kind of out of their control. I do agree that I think for the most part, I think the anime does a great job. I think the manga is like just, you know, in general is probably better in the sense of like some parts, like you say, are so uncensored in the manga. Whereas in the anime, obviously, because of the time slot, they have to censor it to an extent. And again, that's not really in the staff's control. And I think, you know, the fact that they release a new season every single year definitely plays into that. Right. So I don't really hold it against them, but yeah, it is unfortunate sometimes because I do think the manga's art is amazing. And it's tough to, you know, like there's so many panels that I want to see animated really well, but obviously just because of the whole anime production pipeline, it's just not possible. But it is, yeah, the art's amazing.
Yeah, you said earlier that like you don't hold anything against the staff. I want to remember the names of every single staff member and let them know I specifically hate that person. Nothing to do with the anime.
Just add them on Twitter.
Yeah, literally specific. No, I'm fucking.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, I'm fucking around.
Did you draw this?
Like, You drew this frame? Cringe. Fucking embarrassing, first of all. No,
but like in Japanese.
Really broken Google translated Japanese.
Yeah, you are cringe. Yeah. Japanese Google Translate.
There's a I fully agree with you. Like a lot of it's definitely out of their control. I think the sad case is that right now they're on the arc where there's like a big old war, and I remember seeing this video in my recommended about like it was like a guy who does. He redid the coloring and the compositing of like a certain fight scene for My Hero Academia.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, that's a great video, and I think it does like it is kind of like a it's like a great lens to like look at the problems that are with like the anime, I feel like, because they're in a war and just like a lot of the scenery is just like they're at a park and it's just like this bright, beautiful blue sky, and it's just we're supposed to like feel sad in that sense. Well, I feel like when I read the manga, especially for the scenes for the a lot of the origin stories in My Villain Academia, a lot of those arcs are just so gruesome and so well drawn out. I can't remember the author's name like off the top of my head, but he's such a fucking. It's Horikoshi, right? I think it's like
yes, Horikoshi.
Yeah, Horikoshi is such a talented artist. I love the living shit out of his art style. Like there are certain scenes that I swear to God are just like desktop wallpaper quality, and it's like even to this day. Like with the recent chapters that have been coming out, they're just chef's kiss fucking amazing. The only problem that I have, and I think this is probably even worse in the anime, and one of the reasons why I just do not watch like much anime these days, is that My Hero Academia has such a bad syndrome of like, okay, we're in this fight scene, and then every single punch they're about to throw is some kind of a flashback. Like they will just show some previous scene from like about how friendship is like the powerful tool for like whatever the fuck. They do that every single fucking chapter. And like when you're reading it like weekly or bi-weekly or however often, it's not that big of a problem. Dude, it makes the pacing of the anime fucking insufferable sometimes. And even in the manga, I'm like, this is rough, man. This is so rough.
No, I think choreography is definitely not the series' strong point. And I do agree, it's like sometimes every single punch, there's like thoughts behind it. You know, or they'll like think back to like, this is my power. I've got to put my all into it. Punch. Then you know, gets another punch ready. It's like thinks back to someone else. Yeah. It's like they would want me to do that, you know, that kind of thing. I don't hold it too much, but I do agree that it's like choreography, I think, is probably the weakest part of the fights. But for me, it's kind of, you know, the highs kind of outweigh the lows in that sense.
Yeah.
But But it is something that's definitely worse in the anime because the anime is often kind of criticized for like the flashbacks it adds, but in the manga it does the same thing. It's just in a tiny panel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But obviously in anime form, when it does, it's like takes up like 5 seconds of like a 20-minute episode where it's like the flashbacks kind of add up. Whereas in the manga, it's like a tiny panel and no one really cares. So I think it definitely is more difficult to do properly in a.
I think like out of the 3 series, or the 3 main series that you do, being My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Chainsaw Man, I'd imagine the reading experience. So like, if you were to do like a storyboard for each one of these, like let's say like you like set up a folder of like different fight scenes and like trying to relate the choreography in it, I'd imagine, and this is my wild non-professional guess, I'd imagine that doing Chainsaw Man, like the prep for Chainsaw Man, is the easiest because a lot of those chapters are just straight up the choreography. Like there is no fluff in between. While I think My Hero Academia has the issue of like the flashbacks, and I think Jujutsu Kaisen, I think it has the opposite problem where they're so in the fight scene and they're trying to explain to you the rules of like the certain abilities, and they'll break down like a whole PhD system behind it. And I feel like that's the that's like which I love, by the way. That's the thing I really appreciate about JJK is how they have a really intricate system for like abilities. But I imagine from your perspective, like when you're trying to pick out which panels to do, there's probably a fight scene, but like in the middle of it is like an explanation for how this certain thing works, like the magnetic force of like whatever the hell.
Yeah. I think the only issue I have with JJK sometimes with its power system is it's cool how kind of thorough it is. But sometimes they'll have like a 2-page scientific explanation just to basically say this lets them punch harder.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, well, they just tell you it makes you punch harder. Like you don't have to tell me about the gravitational force of X equals Z. Like just say I'm gonna punch you harder. Like sometimes it just feels like a little unnecessary. But it's definitely one of the strongest aspects of it. Just like how much care is kind of put into it.
That's why there's like just so I feel like out of all the 3, JJK has the biggest just iceberg chart community. Just people that are very, very invested in it and want
just scientists.
Yeah, literal. Yeah, just like
every chapter is just like gather around the table. It's like, guys, just the signs add up.
Pull out your fucking lab coats. Let's figure out how this chick makes bunnies like have a gravitational pull that are opposite to the people they're fighting.
That was rough. When I was reading that week to week, I was like, what is it on about? like some things feel so overcomplicated. And to be fair, that one needed like a complicated explanation because it was complicated. But like,
yes,
I don't know. That one was like, just give her a different ability. Just give her like magnetic force or something. Like.
Oh yeah, or just give it a different logical system. Like I feel like that's setting up it's hitting like JoJo's level of like explanations for someone's stance.
Oh yes.
Like, which I mean, it's probably like a good way in its own sense. I definitely feel like if we're gonna talk about the benefit that some of these adaptations get in like an anime, I think the benefit to JJK whenever I watch it like in anime form, because they're coming out with their new season, I think the thing that I really want, especially like once they do Shibuya arc, is I can finally see like the visual animated format of how some of these attacks work. Like I think it's so hard to make the connection from panel to panel of how like certain things work, but if you see it in person, or not in person, but like you see it in like a physical form, like I feel like it's way easier to understand.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think My Hero also suffers from that in the sense that sometimes the art's kind of cluttered and you don't really know what's happening until it's kind of animated. And I think like for Jujutsu Kaisen specifically, there's like, I think you don't know what's happening sometimes just because of the way it's paneled. Like it's paneled in a really like unique way. Whereas, obviously in the anime, they can't really do that kind of thing. And actually going back, you mentioned about the whole kind of storyboarding thing, how you said kind of Chainsaw Man's probably the easiest.
Yeah.
I'd actually say Chainsaw Man's the hardest.
Okay.
Purely because, and obviously not for everything, right? Like for a lot of the fight scenes, it's like you say, it's just panel after panel of the kind of choreography. But I think that, Chainsaw Man has a lot of interesting paneling as well, right? Like for example, the whole Darkness Devil thing, where it's like each panel is kind of separated by fingers.
Yes.
It's like if I was trying to storyboard that, I'd be like, dude, what do I do? Like I can't just put fingers on the screen, to separate it. Or maybe they will. I don't know, but like it seems like a nightmare to kind of storyboard, that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, the thing I actually learned this from, well, one, I kind of talk about this in my video, but the Darkness Devil scene is like the most recreated thing I've ever seen in manga. I have seen people do MMVs, AMVs, Blender recreations, fucking everything you could possibly imagine for the Darkness Devil scene. And
I've got it on a t-shirt.
Do you really?
Yeah, I have that exact like that page on a t-shirt.
Dude, you gotta send that over. I that sounds fucking that wow, I'm creaming myself.
It's a great page.
Yeah, that sounds like such a sick merch to have. The thing that I learned from yours was that the way a lot of people recreated that into like a motion scene is okay. So I'll paint the picture here. There's the astronauts, right? Half of their corpses like are like each half of their corpses on each side, and people just take the one in the front row and just make like 20 rows of that, and then you make it like move through it. And I've noticed a lot of people have been doing that for every single way, and I feel like that's like a sample. I mean, I barely understand the world of MMV, like with the little knowledge that I have. Do you is there like certain times where you do like a creative way of tackling that problem, like instead of doing this background, like I use something else?
Like I think kind of duplicating things and hiding in different places in the frame for like backgrounds and stuff. And I think the astronaut one's the most obvious, right? Where it is literally just take the front one and copy and paste it. Because like, why would you, redraw all of the other ones,
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, and I've animated those astronauts twice. The first time was just for the MMV, and the second time I made them dance. So I can never really take that scene seriously ever again. But
it's just been memeified and recreated. Same with, I mean, Kobeni's dance scene is already supposed to be funny, but that one has been recreated. Oh, I can't even count like off the top of my head. That scene is just so memeable at this point.
Yeah, I mean, because I was losing my mind. Like I remember I was up at like 2 a.m. animating a corpse kicking its legs. Like just like the legs kicking in time with a beat. And I just remember like laughing to myself. It's like, what am I doing? Like I'm animating an astronaut's legs kicking and it's bobbing its head with freaking Kobeni dancing at the end of the corridor. Like, yeah, that kind of changed my kind of perception of the scene, I guess.
Trying to explain to your parents that you're like trying to pursue a professional career in this, meanwhile on your screen you've just been staring at just like just a fucking burger with a chopped off head that's singing a song. Like,
it's like, trust me, it makes sense.
Yeah. Do you out of the 3 series that we were talking about earlier, do you have like a number one pick?
It's difficult, to be honest, because it's definitely between Chainsaw Man and My Hero. I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
Because I think Chainsaw Man is probably like kind of my current favorite, and it's been that way for a couple of years now. But with My Hero, I have a bit more of like a long-term attachment to it. So like even when the quality
relationship with it.
Kind of, yeah. Like, because I've been with it for so long. Like, I caught up on the manga after season 1 just started.
Oh, wow.
So I've been with it since, like, 2016. So I do have that kind of attachment to it. So, like, even when the quality kind of drops, I'm still like, yeah, well, I still love it, Like, even when the reputation's up in flames, I'm like, well, I still like it, like it is now. But, yeah, I mean, like, the thing with Jujutsu Kaisen is I've animated Jujutsu Kaisen a lot, but that's more so because it's the easiest to animate out of the 3, more so than my personal love of the series. And that's not to say I don't like Jujutsu Kaisen, because I do. I like it a lot. It's like a top 15 for me.
Yeah.
But it's a top 15 instead of like a top 10, I'd say.
Oh, wait, okay. Okay, so I have 2 things I want to ask you.
Yes.
Aside from those 2 series, do you have a top 3 manga? You've been reading manga like way longer than I have. This is 2016. I don't even think I'd even consider reading anything related to anime. Do you have like a top 3 off the top of your head?
I'm just going to quickly go to the toilet, actually, because I've been holding.
Oh yeah,
it.
Sure. All good. Me too.
I'll be back in a sec.
So bad.
Yeah, I mean top 3. So like outside of My Hero and Chainsaw Man.
Yes. Or I mean, if they are in your top 3, I'd be interested.
Yeah, I'd say probably Chainsaw Man, My Hero Academia, definitely current kind of top 2. Again, my hero kind of wavers a little bit sometimes, but again, it's like that attachment kind of keeps it there.
Right.
But outside of those, my current three are Kaguya Lover's War, because I followed that one for a long time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Freerun, Beyond Journey's End, because I know, although that's a really recent one, it really, really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So I like jumped right up there. Oishi no Ko is another one I enjoyed recently.
Mm-hmm.
And Berserk, maybe? I don't know. There's quite a few recent ones that like kind of muddle the order, but
Quite the variety,
Yeah.
I feel like.
it's very varied. I have like very varied tastes. Like going from Freerun to freaking Berserk. Like imagine the
Same exact
tonal
thing.
whiplash.
It's same exact
No,
thing,
it's
pretty
basically the
much.
same.
When you said that there was like a certain, not necessarily action-packed series that you would be considering doing, would either of them be like Kaguya-sama or
Maybe?
Oshinoko?
I don't know. I've thought about it before with Kaguya specifically.
Okay.
And it seems like a bit of a difficult one because it's like very self-contained. Each chapter is a joke kind of thing. I'm not sure how well it would go. Or even what
like
song
how
to
would that
choose.
transfer over?
Yeah,
as a
exactly. Because I
medium?
think slice of life stuff, for the most part, is a little bit easier because it's just slow, well composited, fancy looking shots. You know, with the chorus being a particularly beautiful looking one.
Yeah.
At least that's what it would be in my head. Where it's like Oshinoko and Kaguya are so, I don't want to say weirdly structured, but compared to those, I think it'd just be a little bit more difficult. And I think finding a song as well would be tough because I can't really associate Kaguya with anything other than that one guy who sung all of the openings.
Yeah, the main like opening song.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, so speaking of that process, I went on that whole like tangent of asking you, of talking about My Hero. The reason was because so I again, I have never like written a script or started a script and then started reading the series that like I plan on doing, if that makes sense. Like I've never watched a series or read something with the intent of like making some form of media out of that. And I'm wondering, because you do you kind of do like MMVs around ongoing series, meaning that you would have to catch up to it. Do you feel that do you feel that pressure whenever you're reading, like, let's say like the latest Chainsaw Man chapter? Do you feel this pressure like, oh, I have to kind of think of like an outline of how I could make this into an MMV if I wanted
Yeah, I mean,
to,
I think
for
that's
example?
the kind of approach I had with Chainsaw Man Part 2, especially. Like,
Right.
even within the first 3 chapters of Part 2, or I guess, like, that's chapter 98 or something, I was already thinking, like, how would I structure this in an MMV? Because, like, I'm always thinking about MMVs. Like, even while I was reading Freerun, obviously I was primarily focusing on the actual manga and enjoying it. But there's always, like, when I'm reading some pages, I'm like, how would I animate this? And, like, how would I pace between this? You know, like, that kind of thing.
I remember I saw
think
your
with-
chicken
yeah.
post like literally when the chapter came out. Like the second the chicken came out, the next day I saw your post of the chicken like waving hello.
Oh,
from
what you mean,
Chainsaw
like
Man.
the initial ripped Bucky?
You sped ran that. Like you like literally did a world record for how quickly
yeah,
I've
I mean,
seen that
so-
animated.
That chapter for me, for at least I think 11 p.m. on my time, which because I was in somewhere else, I was in the UK. As soon as it released, and as soon as I had it in my hands, I animated it, and then within an hour, I think it was done. So it was a really rushed thing, but like I had the meme idea in my head. Like I told myself, Chainsaw Man is come back. Like Part 2 started, it's going to be big. If there's ever a time to get likes on something, it's going to be this.
Ooh,
And so even
he's a
before the chapter
strategist.
released, yeah, sometimes, not always, not when I'm with keyframes, but so, you know, like so, you know, like for this particular thing, I was like thinking, like regardless of what's in the chapter, like Chainsaw Man's always been a very animatable manga. Like that's why I enjoyed making the first MMV so much, because everything just felt so easy to animate.
Right.
It just felt so easy to add all this color and stuff. So for the second part, again, before the chapter released, I was like, there's going to be something. And then obviously it was about a fucking chicken. And I was like, what? Where's Denji? Where's anything? But then I thought the chicken dying was kind of funny. And I was listening to that one JoJo soundtrack for Caesar Dies. And I was like, well, I'll just do that. So
What
it was
percentage?
rushed, but
No, I mean,
It worked.
It looked hilarious as shit, and I mean that's the thing that like really motivated me to like talk about the fans of Chainsaw Man, because I feel like, well, I almost felt bad because so you're credited in that video, but I just like put like a series of fan creations for like a certain segment, and I think for your segment I said Chainsaw Man fans are like all so unnecessarily talented, and I said that for your segment. I was like, I hope he doesn't see that and think I'm like trying to insult him. I didn't mean that like that to come off in a bad way. You're just
not at all. No.
You're again. I just remember seeing your stuff, and I was like, it makes no sense why a chicken being animated, like a shit post of a chicken being animated, is supposed to look this good. I just couldn't like fathom.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
yeah,
I felt no offense. I mean, I agree. I think Chainsaw fans are weird, to put in a good way for the most part. You know,
right? Yeah.
I mean, the whole woofing thing kind of says it all. Like, I remember there was a period where, like, I'm not sure if people still do it, but I know there was like a period of time where anytime any person cosplayed as Makima, 90% of the replies were people just woofing and snarling.
I don't know if that's still a thing now, but like I don't
know if it's still a thing, but yeah,
I'm sure. I think back, because I think that it's become so mainstream now because of the anime that I'd imagine that's probably not the case anymore. But there was like a blissful
been
period.
Filtered out.
Exactly. Yeah, the woofers have been like outsourced to like the normies, but but I think there was like a weird blissful period where Chainsaw Man was finished, but it wasn't like adapted yet, and that was probably like the strangest point where the community was at, just in terms of like weird shit that you'd see on the internet relating to just Denji or Power.
When did you catch up on Chainsaw Man? Did you catch up before part 1 finished? Or
yeah, I read it literally, I think, a week after the very last chapter came out. So that was like 2020 or 2021. I don't remember. But Chainsaw... Yeah, it was probably like 2020. And that was my first ever manga. Like, I didn't know or really care.
What to start with?
That's the whole like weird origin story with my channel, was that like I never even considered the idea of wanting to like give a shit about reading a manga. And then have you ever watched like a Mother's Basement video before?
Not in a while, but I've watched quite a few of the old ones. Yeah,
there was I haven't really seen much of their stuff like recently, but back in the day I was just like huge into AniTube stuff, and I remember I was watching a Mother's Basement video during the pandemic that was like 5 shonen manga that like will 100% like receive an adaptation, and one of them was Chainsaw Man, and I didn't like know what it was at the time or anything, but I remember he described it, and then he said yeah, like this manga is probably going to get adapted, but the adaptation will never do it justice, just how like ridiculous like the manga was. And I don't know why that like triggered something in my brain to be like, oh, I have to go, like I have to find out what he's talking about. And then
and do you think the anime did it justice?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think, but that was like,
because I know it's quite like hotly debated.
Very, very much so. But I think to his credit, he probably was saying that like he was saying years before like we even saw anything. Like there was no content out there like related to the adaptation, so people just kind of assumed, oh, it's gonna be adapted like how, I don't know, like what's an example of like a semi okay-ish adaptation, like Spy X Family. No, Spy X Family. Yeah, I guess
Spy Family was actually a banger.
Yeah, I'd say like Spy X Family
is actually kind of a banger, to be honest.
Yeah, I just kind of like it's an I mean, as somebody who just straight up prefers the medium of manga, like I just wouldn't.
Oh yeah, for
like
sure,
yeah, it's an adaptation. I wouldn't say anything. But I think it's. I've said this before. Like it's kind of fucking absurd. Like you rarely ever see that happen, where like you have like such incredible source material, and then you have a studio that's just willing to just fucking even come close to competing with that. Like that is such a wild adaptation for Chainsaw Man to get already.
It was the it seemed like the ultimate passion project. Like it was so much like a movie.
Exactly.
Like every episode looked amazing. Every episode had its unique ending, you know? Like it screamed passion project. And I think, you know, some parts could have been directed a little bit better, but I don't think there was any lack of like effort, right? Or passion. Like I think they were very passionate, and it showed.
Exactly. Yeah. It didn't feel like it was just the panels being recolored or anything. There was like actual like no like you said, like there's actually like film inspiration behind it. Like I think I've seen people like there's like a Tarantino reference in the opening. There's like 50 different references that are done.
Oh yeah, well I mean the opening is like just cinema reference, right? It's like there's
literally
like 20 like I remember people getting hundreds of thousands of views just being like all the film references in Chainsaw Man opening.
Yeah.
You know? And then like people did like follow-up videos, the ones you missed, you know, like
big old red circle in the background. You didn't see this.
Yeah. So that's from Spider-Man, or, you know, something like just make it up.
Yeah, exactly. There's like, which is also just like the most Fujimoto thing you can do for an opening. Like the guy is just so obsessed with film already, and Chainsaw Man is such a manga of like inspiration from every form of shonen to have already existed in the past. That like that's like the best thing you could have done, like decisively for like an adaptation. Is there a part of you that thinks almost analytically when you think to yourself like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna make a video on Chainsaw Man. The anime just came out. Like now is like a perfect time to like make a video on it. Is there a certain part of your brain that does that, or are you just kind of like, no, I'm gonna make whatever I want to make?
For Chainsaw Man, the first MMV, I really tried to plan it. And ultimately, I will say, in the end, it didn't actually really work out. Because, like, don't be wrong, the video didn't do badly. But, like, relative to what I kind of set myself up to expect, it did pretty poor. And that's because... So I remember... I don't know what convention it was. I think it was, like, the Crunchyroll convention or something at the time. They said they were going to be there. So I assumed they're going to release a trailer.
Dude,
it's gonna be tons of buzz.
That's a Anime
I uploaded
Expo
it on that weekend. Oh, was it Anime Expo? There you go.
Yeah, I remember waking up and seeing your MMV.
Yeah, so I remember like at the time I was like, this video is going to be around the time. It's going to do numbers. And then Anime Expo, they just did a Q&A. And I was like, son of a bitch. I planned this. You know, and then obviously they released a trailer later. But yeah, I tried to plan it around that. But I also just wanted to make a Chainsaw Man MMV. Because I was bored of the MMV I was working on.
Yeah.
And I just, I kind of just, I didn't speed run the MMV because I wanted it to be out on time. I kind of planned it. There was some coincidence, for sure. I just kind of happened to line up and I was like, I'm a genius. But yeah, I just kind of happened to make it around that time. And then as I kind of got towards finishing it, I was like, wait a minute. I should upload on this day. Close to Anime Expo, you know? But yeah, it didn't really pan out.
God damn it. By the way, I hope anybody that's listening to this, he just said it was a flop. That video has 700,000 views. To anybody that wants to feel upset at Ninja today, just...
I get it. Like, by today, right, that video... I mean, I'm not saying the video is currently a flop, but just like when I initially uploaded it...
Oh, you meant like a performance like, during that time. Yeah, okay, fair.
Yes, yeah. Because it's just like, you know, like, to be fair to it, it was competing against Kobeni and Darby Dance. So... You know, like after that video blew up, I thought, well, as long as there's obviously an interest in Kobeni, who's in Chainsaw Man, who's in the MMV, you know, like I thought, if anything's going to get picked up by the algorithm early on, it's going to be Chainsaw Man, and it just kind of didn't. But yeah, I mean, I'm not by any means like disappointed with the video. I mean, like 700,000 views is insane. Like, I'm not upset with any of my videos' performance, to be honest.
No,
like,
I was just giving you shit. Yeah, I understand what you mean, though. Like, in terms of, like, just in the context of when everything was going on. Like, I do understand, like, where you were trying to get from. How often do you say you...
pulled out.
Yeah, exactly. How often do you say you use, like, you use that side of your brain that's constantly thinking, like, okay, in terms of growth, what is like the best decision I could make? And then what percentage of you is like, oh, I really love this manga and there's like certain things that I want to try out with this composition?
To be honest, I think 90% of it is just me trying stuff out and coincidence. I think, to be honest, looking back, the Chainsaw Man's the main one that was like, and even again, like as I said, that was more towards the end of by like happenstance or whatever. I just kind of happened to fall into place. But like for the most part, I just kind of make stuff and I get rewarded for it. Like, I'll just upload a random thing. Like, for example, my Pokemon one, right? That was a pure passion project. I have no expectations for that whatsoever. In hindsight, it's Pokemon. I should have known better. But, like, like it was a fan comic, right? So I was like, there's not like a massive following in the West. It's probably not going
Yeah.
to do great, but I just really wanted to animate it, and it's one of my best performing videos, you know. So
Yeah.
I just since that video, I've just kind of had the attitude of like, if it blows up, it blows up. I get pretty lucky, generally speaking. So yeah, I just kind of upload what I want.
I mean, I've said this before with lines in motion, but it almost feels like the more niche of a manga you like make something out of, it almost feels like that fan base has a moment where they're like, oh my god, like fucking finally. I feel like that probably happened too with the Fire Force one that you made. I feel like I would have never expected there to be such a large community, and then like once you made that
Yeah, I
just
mean, I
like
think like
immediately
even
blew
back
up.
when I was doing commentary videos, there was this one manga I made a video on. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called, I think, 100 Girlfriends Who Really, Really Love You. And I
I've
made a
heard of
commentary
that.
video on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I made a video on that one. And again, back then, like, it was kind of whatever. But I put it in the subreddit and they were like super happy. They were like, someone made a video on it. Yes, because it was like early on. Yeah, so I think, I mean, there's definitely an appeal. I'd make more MMVs on more niche manga if I didn't already have like a demand for like another Jujutsu Kaisen one. But yeah.
How do you make the priority list? How do you determine what's going to be the next one? Is it like if you were to do like a give and take system between you and your fans, what percentage of it is like I'm going to do it, and then what percentage of it is like the demand for
I mean,
it?
I guess technically like the demand list, like the top is just Jujutsu Kaisen and tutorials. And I have provided neither for the last 6 months. I mean, like it's like, I like kind of had a fork, I was like doing like the aeroplane towards their mouth, and last minute I put a Chainsaw Man MMV there instead.
Yeah.
That's just, like, so even though the priority list is there, I'm not really following it exactly. And it's not because I'm like trying to be like, like a rebel, but it's just because that particular Jujutsu Kaisen, I mean, again, like the tutorial thing, I've already explained why I'm, apprehensive about that. But with the Jujutsu Kaisen one specifically, it's because it's such a long video. It's gonna take me months. Like, it is my biggest project by far.
Yeah.
For like multiple reasons, and it's just, for that reason, I'm kind of, even though it's technically at like the top of the priority list, I am kind of, I'm working on it. But
Is there like a
videos might slip by.
ninja standard that you have to set? Like, is there a Ninja standard that you almost feel like you have to meet with every time you make one? So I'd imagine like, if you have to make a really long one, like let's say this is like nearly 2-minute plus video. I don't know exactly like what's like the longest MMV you've ever made. I'd assume it's like just under 2 minutes or just over 2 minutes.
The longest I've made is just under 4
Oh yeah,
minutes.
I see it right now. The My Hero Academia one, right?
Yeah, and this Jujutsu Kaisen one's going to be also just under 4 minutes.
I'd imagine that's like pretty overwhelming,
quite a
right?
task.
Because it's almost like you're like seeing the mountain. You're seeing the whole thing, and I'd imagine there's like a certain standard that you'd probably expect from yourself. What is that? Do you feel like you're gonna find yourself just like jumping around between projects for the motivation, or are you like pretty consistent with just like, okay, this set of time I'm gonna like do this amount of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of like the standard thing and like the kind of like motivation, because like motivation's been a massive kind of drive, which is why I've been so active on social media, because it's not just to share stuff for other people, it's also so I can get feedback and I can like fuel myself with motivation, because again, it's like months of work for something that might just not get watched potentially, so I kind of have to use that motivation. But yeah, in terms of a standard, I mean, that's the thing, right? And the reason the video is taking so long is because I don't want to just rush it out and have it kind of be quantity over quality. I think, and it might not be true, everyone's always going to have a different opinion, but for me at least, I feel like every video I've made has improved in some way, or is kind of on a constant improving thing. Like, there's not like a next video that's kind of dipped in quality necessarily, right? And at least, and that's what the comments reflect, right? And I'm just kind of, I don't want to say scared, but I just don't want to upload a video where the comments are like, well, this wasn't this wasn't as good as the last video, but it's good, because like every video has been wow. Yeah, this is even better than the last one. No, not once. I've never gotten that before. like whenever it's comments about like progress and stuff, all of them are always like, wow, this is way better than the last one. I didn't think you could top the one before that, So because of that, I want to make sure that what I'm uploading lives up to that. Which again makes it difficult, but that's just kind of where I'm at.
I feel like it's almost well, one, I really like, I actually fully agree with you, weirdly enough, about posting behind the scenes stuff on social media is like a weird roundabout way of giving yourself more motivation, because it's like you give yourself more pressure. You're telling people like, guys, I'm working on this, and then they're like, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? When's it coming out? And you're like, I didn't feel this before. I remember I posted for my last video, I posted a trailer for it like a month beforehand, and I gave it a release date. I was like, this is the release date, and then I never met that release date. I was like 2 weeks later.
Yes. giving a release date is something I often do. It's like even before project's finished, sometimes like it's even to the extreme, and it was the same with my Chainsaw Man MMV. I like said, it's done, I finished it. Then I go back to my laptop, I've still got 10 seconds left to actually animate.
You're like lying to them. You're like, guys, this is 50% done.
Well, exactly. Exactly, because it's one thing to say that, okay, it's going to be uploaded around this time. That's the aim. And then you don't make it. It's like, shucks. Oh, well. But it's another thing to say it's done. It's ready to go. And then go, I lied, So I think it says like the extra kind of layer of pressure just to make sure I get it done.
A 727 landed in my backyard, so the upload's gonna get delayed by a couple days. I'm really sorry about that. It's like a natural disaster happened. I can't believe it. It's such a rare occurrence. The
video started unediting itself. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. It started unediting itself. It removed like 30 layers. I don't know how it did that. It was like by some weird bug. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I could have almost used that excuse for the Chainsaw Man one, like the recent one, because, and luckily I lost nothing ultimately, sort of, but through like an accidental kind of keyboard shortcut and me not realizing, I actually lost like 80% of that MMV. Like the first 80% of it is gone. I can't edit it anymore. But obviously, because I always render stuff as I go in chunks, just to be safe, so I can back stuff up. Because of that, I didn't lose anything. But again, like right now, if I open the projects, it's only the last like 30% of it, and I was like, sweating. And I also unbinded that keyboard shortcut because it sucks.
What? Yeah, do you remember what it is? Do you remember what the keybind is?
It was like set composition something. I remember I tweeted about it, and I was like, I just want to know who decided that was a good idea, with like a gif of Batman cracking his knuckles, because like it sucks. And like the only way I could have tried to get it back was just to spam Control Z, like try to undo back until. But it happened so far back that I lost 2 hours of work from just undoing, and I couldn't redo any of it, and I still lost like all the stuff I lost. So like,
there's like a certain anxiety I feel like I always get when I'm 90% into a project. Like I'm at minute mark 40.
Oh, same.
And this Premiere project looks absolutely fucked. I remember there's a point where my dad, I was like almost done with the video, and my dad was like, hey, I have like a new hard drive. It's like 3 terabytes. Do you want me to like install it for you? And I was like, do not touch the PC. Don't breathe on it.
Don't touch it.
Anything could trigger it. Anything could make, and like, I mean, the general listens, you should probably just back up your files, which I do, but I should do way more often. God, dude, the amount of anxiety you get when you're like at the 90th percent of like a certain project.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I've kind of joked about, even in the comments at one time, I joked about my laptop catching fire, but especially on my old laptop, I was, it never caught fire, but I was serious. Like, especially when I'm like towards the end of a video, I'm genuinely in fear that I'll see a spark just like fly out of the laptop.
And then it's over.
Like, even though I've backed so much of it up, because like, even if I have most of it backed up, I'm still like, like in a 2-hour session, and I don't want to have to redo any of those 2 hours. And I'm genuinely scared because the laptop gets so hot, I start cooking food on it. It's terrifying being that far into a video.
Making eggs easy over on top of it. You're like, well, I got to make use of it somehow. The file's completely gone.
Exactly. It's called multitasking. Got to cook and animate at the same time.
My last CPU, I fucking cooked that thing. My so this happened like a couple months ago, but I think just over time I wore out the living shit out of my CPU to an extent where like I was so desperate to get my Chainsaw Man video done. I would have I bought like a miniature fan and I would just point it directly at my PC from across the room.
Same.
And just pray, and it was still warm. Like I would put the CPU would with throttle super fast, and then the GPU, like we're joking about it, but like you probably could have cooked an egg on top of it. Like it was that fucking warm.
Oh, but no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, with laptops, especially like gaming laptops, they get so damn hot. And especially when it's like, again, it's 8 gigabyte. Oh, that's it. It was an 8 gigabytes of RAM laptop trying to run After Effects is 16 gigabytes of RAM
shut
minimum.
The fuck up. You did not run on 8 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, it did. That's what that laptop was. Like every MMV up until which video was it? I think it was the Deku Arrives one. Like that edit. That it was like a short video. It was after the Pokemon MMV, I think. Or the video after Kobeni Darby Dance 2. Everything before that video, so Kobeni Darby Dance 2 and before, everything was done on 8 gigabytes of RAM. And it was rough. And that laptop, that's what I said about the laptop catching flames. Like that laptop's currently being used by someone else. I gave it to them, and they had to get it repaired.
It's like when your parents give you a hand-me-down car at like 250,000 miles, and then it breaks down the second the other person uses it, and then your parents are like, "Well, it worked just fine when I was using it. I don't know."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but pretty much that's how the laptop was. And like whenever it'd say like the laptop's like busted, I just kind of shrug.
Sorry, yeah, that's I mean, it worked just fine when I was using it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I've made like 20 videos on it.
Dude, that's so funny to think about because like I feel like sometimes you hear about a manga blowing up and you find out that this person was just like in their shitty office chair doing sketches on like a tiny little notebook or whatever. I feel like it's so funny to look at your channel and just the sheer size of how many people and like how much exposure it gets in contrast to the setup and like the space that you're using it in. I feel like most people come across the opposite situation. Like you hear that meme about like a kid just like a young teenager or a young adult wants to get into streaming, so they have like a $4,000 setup for like 2 viewers or whatever. Like I feel like you always hear about the opposite, not people in your position where it's like you were actually using a fucking toaster to produce like animation studio quality stuff to like post onto your or not to like I'm sure you're gonna be like, oh, I don't make like that high level of quality stuff. I mean like just in terms of it's exposure. It's like you have the potential to get it exposed to like this quality size of like a fucking animation studio.
Yeah, I mean my setup's kind of a little bit scuffed potentially. I mean, like for example, my microphone right now is propped on top of a Berserk volume. Because the volumes are massive.
God fucking damn it, dude. Make your Patreon, please.
Which I'd say...
Make your goddamn Patreon.
Yeah. Which... the thing is, I'd say that's a budget setup, but those Berserk volumes are fucking expensive, so I think, if anything, this is a pricier setup than like an actual stand. Oh. I have the deluxe editions, which I don't regret, because it's like the best experience I've had reading a manga physically. Yeah. Damn. It adds up. But it was great. I read Berserk while listening to Elden Ring soundtracks.
I've never considered that. That is actually like probably the best idea I've ever heard in my life.
Such a good idea. I read Freelancing while listening to Dragon Quest soundtracks, like a relaxing Dragon Quest.
Do you do that often? Do you listen to OSTs while you read?
It depends on the series. I think it's easiest for like fantasy stuff because like Berserk has like Elden Ring, which is so like pessimistic and dark and has like really perfect stuff for the fight scenes. And then Freelancing is again like fantasy setting. You've got all these kind of different ones to choose from. I recently binged Oshi no Ko, and like I don't know what soundtrack I listen to for that. So I think it depends on the series.
Just audio from Minecraft.
I think fantasies. There's always something.
Sorry,
maybe.
I have like a love-hate relationship with Oshi no Ko just because I
well, I remember I saw your video and you were like the first I think when you read it you only read 5 chapters, right? So you didn't actually get to like the actual
I get reminded of that every single day of my life. It is the most frequently requested thing for me to read and part of me just doesn't want to
I
do
bet.
it just because it's funnier to see how angry people get at me.
Oh, no, that's fair.
I believe
No,
it.
I get
I'm
it.
sure
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
an amazing
I mean,
series.
I think for me, yeah, I think that the reason I think if I read the manga, I'd have the kind of same reaction because it did have like a bit of a
Yeah.
weird start. But I think the reason I got into it is because I watched the anime, and the anime is the entire first volume, which ends with the because it's like a movie essentially. It's like an hour and a half
really?
episode.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're not here, really? Yeah, it's like yeah. So like episode 2 and 3 and onwards are all going to be like 20 episode standard stuff. But the first episode was an hour and 20 minutes, so it was the equivalent of 4 episodes. And because of that, it was amazing. Like it's like a first episode is probably the strongest I've seen in a very long time, and it ends with the kind of certain character death and like a reveal that it's actually a murder mystery instead of just like a weird comedy reincarnation
Wow.
thing. So I think that's why I got
Yeah,
into
I've
it
always
so
joked
quickly.
about making it like a $10,000 fucking Patreon tier or something to finally get me to do it. I just have never, and I'll wear like the there's like an idol in that story, right? I'll just like I'll wear her outfit or something. I don't know. We're just like this whole episode is just us brainstorming Patreon ideas for like each of us to be able to do this financially as like a full-time thing.
Exactly, we're just helping each other out. honestly.
Yeah.
Didn't realize we were recording
yeah, it's
yet.
actually just getting started. Speaking of which, I am gonna have to go soon. We are, dude. I swear to God, bro, every single time I picture myself like having a certain set amount of time for how long these recordings are gonna go for, I'm just like way off. I'm always off by like a fucking hour and a half.
All I'm saying is the next guest's gotta continue the trend.
Yeah, just how
Gotta
we were
reach
talking
4
about
hours.
earlier, how you gotta like one up yourself with each upload. I just gotta go, so by the time it's like episode 10, it's 6 years long. Like I have to have this conversation.
It's like, hey guys, welcome to part 3
Yes.
of chatting with whoever. This is the third part, the third 3-hour part. Enjoy.
Next person we're gonna have to do like a camping trip together or some sorts. The question that I mean, this is just something. It's only like the third episode, so I'm not here to like start any trends or anything. But the thing I've actually liked doing is I'm sure there's a lot of people in your position that like that are interested in pursuing making some form of art form, either relating to MMVs or anything similar to that. And so I guess my question to you would be like, do you have like any 3 bits of advice that you would have for somebody that either is already doing it now or would like to get started into it?
I think ultimately my biggest piece of advice, which is something I've kind of followed and that's kind of kept me going, is don't focus so much on what other people are making. Obviously, use them as inspiration and watch tons of stuff, but don't be too kind of self-conscious about what other people are making. Just kind of focus on your own stuff. Like make a video, and then for the next one, just think about how you can improve on your previous one. And if you just kind of have that mindset of just improving, even if it's like one small thing, if you're just adding like an effect, or if you're improving like character animation, or you try using a specific effect or color or something like that. I think as long as you kind of have that kind of mindset of just improving on one particular thing, and you kind of see that progression, I think you'll do fine. And watch if 3D cameras, know their existence before you start. Watch tutorials, please. Easy ease, graph editor. Remember those words, graph
Velocity.
editor. Please.
Remember the word
mistakes
velocity.
I did. Velocity. I mean, at the end of the day, I got here by being an absolute moron for the first 4 months. So anyone who starts at knowing 3D cameras and graph editor, you're in a great spot. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there anywhere where you want to like promote, anywhere that they can find you on like social medias and stuff?
Yes. First and foremost, you can find me at
Yes,
patreon.com/ninjaristicninja. First and foremost, that's my main platform. You won't find me anywhere else. Thank you. Pay the money. No,
$100 tiers only.
YouTube
Thank
first
you.
and foremost. Yeah. $100 I accept, more if you want to. I don't mind. Yeah, so first and foremost, obviously YouTube, NinjaristicNinja. I'm also on Twitter at @ninjaristic_, but if you search NinjaristicNinja, you'll find me there as well. TikTok, believe it or not, it's NinjaristicNinja. And Instagram, You can
Who
probably fill in the
would've
blank.
thought?
Starts with Ninjaristic and ends in Ninja. Yeah. Yeah, so just Ninjaristic Ninja everywhere. And Patreon soon.
Yeah, believe it or not, DeviantArt account name,
Hopefully.
Brian. Just Brian. Brian and then 1_. But other than that, everything else is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that one's got to remain separate
for obvious reasons, of course. His real name's not Brian. I was just throwing that out there.